Chapter 951. Xiao Chen said seriously, "It is my fortune to receive such care from the sect master. Most outstanding talents have a Tao protector behind them. The sect master has been your Tao protector for a long time now. However, this is all he can do. Whether you can take back the king title that belongs to you at the king conferral ceremony half a year later will depend on yourself." Xiao Chen nodded to indicate that he understood. Then, he asked about another matter. "Senior sister, do you know of any peak refining sects or forging grandmasters that have deep ties with my Haotian sect? What do you want to do? Forge secret treasures?" "No, I want to ask for answers to some questions. I would like the sect to give me a recommendation letter." Shui Lingling smiled and said, "That is easy. The most famous grandmaster forging swords in the profound domain, Sidu Leihong, has deep ties with Master. I'll write a recommendation letter for you. You just need to bring your identity token to meet him. He has forged many subdivine weapons before. He is a legendary blacksmith. He will definitely be able to answer your questions." When Xiao Chen heard this, he rejoiced. A person who could forge a subdivine weapon would definitely know the requirements for nurturing an embryonic soul into an item spirit. After saying goodbye to Shui Lingling, Xiao Chen brought Yu Chenxi, Gong Yangyu, Jin Lin, and Xiao Xian to his own mountain. Then, he chatted with De Bao and the others for a long time. Everyone chatted about the past and the martial Tao. The night passed in the blink of an eye. At dawn, Xiao Chen went out alone and met with the first elder, Han Qinghe. From him, he learned some inside information about the king conferral ceremony. The Thunder King had been in closed-door cultivation. The Holy Lord of the Three Holy Masters' Holy Land was in charge of the Bushan Palace. This time, the king conferral ceremony was extended by half a year. Another important reason was to create an opportunity for Xiahou Ju of Beidasheng, the head of the Three Holy Masters, to accumulate military merits and meet the requirements of being conferred king. At that time, he would be conferred the title of king at the same time as Xiao Chen. With the foundation of the Holy Land, he would completely overshadow Xiao Chen's limelight and tell the world who was truly supported by the Bushan Palace. The land of the Three Holy Masters had really gone through a lot of trouble. In order to suppress him, they had even used this. The only good news was that the Haotian Emperor had personally helped him obtain the title of Blue Dragon King from the Three Holy Masters. After Xiao Chen found out, he didn't say anything. As long as he could get the title of Blue Dragon King, everything was negotiable. The Haotian Great Emperor had helped him to this step, and he would take care of the rest himself. As for those people who wanted to cause trouble at the king conferral ceremony, Xiao Chen would use his strength to retaliate. When Xiao Chen returned to the mountain, Gong Yangyu had already left. Lord Jiu and Kim Taeho were still sleeping soundly. When Yu Chenxi saw Xiao Chen return, he hesitated for a moment before saying, "Senior brother Xiao Chen, after you are conferred king, you will definitely have your own territory. I would like to go with you when the time comes." "Senior brother, we are willing to go as well," Jin Lin and Xiao Xian quickly said. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "You are thinking too far ahead. Furthermore, you are all elite disciples of the Haotian sect. Whether you can go or not depends on Elder Han." Yu Chenxi smiled and said, "Senior brother, don't worry about this. First senior sister was the one who told us about this. Since she agreed, Elder Han and the sect master will definitely not have a problem." Jin Lin and the other two said, "Now, it will depend on senior brother's opinion. If Xiao Chen succeeded in being conferred king and given his territory, he would be able to establish his own sect even though he would still be under the Haotian sect. At that time, he would definitely need help. Xiao Chen's original plan was to use this as the base for the Dragon's Gate in the future. If he wanted to restore the Dragon's Gate to its former glory, he would not be able to do it alone. Yu Chenxi, Jin Lin, and the others would definitely become Grandmaster-level martial sages in the future. If Shao Chun sincerely joined the Dragon's Gate, it would naturally be very beneficial. However, all this would have to wait until Shao Chun repaid the Haotian sect's debt. It was too early to say all this now. Shao Chun rejected their suggestions for now. Many thanks. However, let's talk about this after I am conferred king. If I cannot give you a better future, even if the sect master agrees, I will not agree. Seeing that Shao Chun did not directly reject them, Jin Lin and the others did not insist. At least, there was still hope. In that case, I will take my leave first. Senior brother Shao Chun will definitely succeed in being conferred king. Will he definitely succeed? Shao Chun thought about the strength that Di Wuk and the Divine Daughter displayed in the heavenly ruin wasteland, the three holy masters' deliberate suppression, and the ancient race's outstanding talents eyeing him covetously. Shao Chun's king conferral ceremony was destined to not be peaceful. If he made a mistake, his past would be ruined. Those people would definitely not let go of this opportunity to kick him when he was down. Collecting his thoughts, Shao Chun woke up Kim Tae-ho and Lord Jiu. Wake up. Stop sleeping. It's time to depart. Fatso rubbed his eyes and asked in a daze, Depart? Where are we going? To the profound domains in clan. Help Lord Jiu deal with some illegal goods. The largest merchant association in the Kunlun realm, the flourishing Heaven Pavilion, is there. I believe you will be interested. When Kim Tae-ho heard this, he immediately perked up. Lord Jiu had woken up long ago. He wished that he could sell off all the treasures in his hands. Shao Chun opened his mouth and spat out the Dragon's Gate's warship. 18 sails rose up, and the warship carried Da Bao and Lord Jiu towards the profound domain. A cool breeze blew as the warship traveled through the clouds. On the warship's bow, Shao Chun played with the lunar shadow saber in his hand. His expression was calm and peaceful. His hair fluttered in the cool breeze, and his white robes fluttered endlessly. The flawless saber Dao used the body as a saber and the thoughts as a saber. However, without a saber in one's hand, something was missing in the end. It would never reach true flawless. Only by becoming one with the saber would one be able to cultivate the flawless saber Dao to great perfection. Only by becoming one with the saber could one cultivate the flawless saber Dao to great perfection. Vaguely, as Shao Chun held the lunar shadow saber in his hand, he entered a wondrous state of comprehension. The position of the flawless saber Dao slowly became clear in his mind. The flawless saber Dao was not just a martial technique. Instead, it was a Dao that Shao Chun wanted to walk, a saber Dao that no one before or after could match. Right now, the flawless saber Dao was like a newborn baby, with only a rough outline. When Shao Chun comprehended it and materialized this saber Dao to its peak, it would not only increase his strength significantly, but it would also benefit the bladesmen in the future. It would give bladesmen in the future another choice, achieving immortality for 10,000 years. Suddenly, Shao Chun felt a strand of killing chi. He squinted and sent out a saber light. The clouds for 5 kilometers around scattered, and a black-clad man appeared before Shao Chun and the other two. Without saying a word, the black-clothed man extended his hand and pointed with a finger. Circles of white light bloomed behind him. Every circle of light contained surging energy, as if they were real. There were a total of 1,500 circles. There seemed to be a vague, white, holy tiger in the center of the rings of light, roaring at the sky. The black-clad man's palm strike scattered the clouds for 5 kilometers around. As the tiger roared, they suddenly gathered again. The black-clad man pointed, and a transparent ripple appeared in the sky. A huge index finger extended from the ripple and headed for the Dragon's Gate's warship. At the same time, many cryptic talisman scripts appeared in the rings of light with the Dragon's Gate's warship as the center. They formed a void formation and locked down space. When this mysterious black-clad man made his move, he created a horrifying might. Kim Tae-ho and Lord Jiu, who were on the warship, paled slightly when they saw the gigantic finger descending. With a thought, A bright moon rose behind Shao Chen. The dark night hung upside down in the sky. Kasie, Kasie. The instant the bright moon rose, the formation locking down the dragon's gate's worship shattered. When facing the horrifying finger, Shao Chen also pointed, and the bright moon in the sky vanished. The resplendent moonlight turned into a saber light and shot out from Shao Chen's fingertip. The saber light clashed with the gigantic finger, producing a loud explosion in the air. Shock waves surged, lightning bolts, saber lights, sword images, and all sorts of mysterious phenomena flashed continuously in the sky. The black-clad man pointed with a contemplative expression. Then, he turned around and leaped up, preparing to leave. Whoosh! However, the moment the black-clad man turned around, he saw Shao Chen, who had the freedom wings spread out on his back, looking at him coldly. Brother Xiahou, instead of accumulating 1,000,000 military merits to be conferred king, you rushed from White Emperor City to the Haotian province just to point at Shao Chen. This Shao is truly honored. The moment this person made a move, Shao Chen recognized him. This was the White Emperor City's holy son, Shao Hoju. After not seeing each other for 3 years, the other party had grown to a startling level by relying on the accumulations of the Holy Lands. Although Shao Chen had casually pointed earlier, it had the momentum of pointing at the sky and drawing the earth, sufficient to kill some ordinary Grandmaster-level martial sages. After being seen through by Shao Chen, Shao Hoju pulled off his mask and smiled. There is no need to worry about me. I will definitely be conferred king smoothly. Just worry about yourself. The title of Blue Dragon King is not that easy to obtain. Shao Chen said calmly, let me return the same words to you. Just worry about yourself. Since you gave me a finger, I will give you one in return. Snowflakes drifted behind Shao Chen as he pointed at the completed winter saber with the flawless 4 seasons. The snowflakes filling the air gathered into a crystalline flower. Behind Shao Chen, a vast expanse of snow blanketed the mountains and rivers for thousands of kilometers around. Shao Hoju's expression turned grave as he stretched out his hand. The world turned silent, and a stone finger containing a vast and ancient energy shot out. He quickly pointed out and hit the crystal-clear wandering flower, and the wandering flower instantly shattered. However, the cold chi continued to spread and seeped into the ancient stone finger. Cracking sounds rang out, and the stone finger instantly shattered, turning into countless ice shards. Shao Hoju grunted. He had not expected the cold chi to be so strange. After suffering a small loss, he said coldly, Shao Chen, let's see if you can still be this arrogant after half a year. Shao Chen let Shao Chen leave. Then, he entered deep thought. He stretched out his hand, and the ice shards in the air turned into motes of light and entered his hand, forming another ice flower. 4 seasons like snow, born and never extinguished. Half a year from now, if this is all you are capable of, I will make you suffer greatly. The appearance of the White Emperor cities, Shao Hoju, was both unexpected and reasonable. For a long time, the 3 holy masters had been the leaders of the Tianwu domain's younger generation. Among them, Shao Hoju's ambition was the greatest. Now, Shao Chen's fame resounded throughout the entire Kunlun realm. Although the Dragon's Gate was destroyed, his prestige had already surpassed that of the 3 holy masters among the Tianwu domain's younger generation. However, the prestige of the 3 holy masters' 10 years and the 10,000 years of accumulations of the Holy Lands were much greater than that of Shao Chen, a person who had risen to prominence only 4 or 5 years ago. Chapter 952. As time went by, Shao Chen was not considered to be much stronger than the 3 holy masters among the younger generation of the Tianwu domain. However, if Shao Chen succeeded in being conferred king and traveled the world as the Blue Dragon King, the situation would be different. To Shao Hoju, who wanted to rule the Tianwu domain's younger generation, Shao Chen would be a great threat. Shao Chen personally made a move to test out Shao Chen's strength. Shao Chen was currently in a crucial period of accumulating military merit. If he still did not have 1,000,000 military merits after half a year, it would be bad if he could not be conferred king. Hence, Shao Chen's appearance surprised Shao Chen. When Shao Chen returned to the Dragon's Gate's warship, Kim Tae-ho and Lord Jiu heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Shao Chen rushing back. Kim Tae-ho fanned himself and said, "Old brother Shao Chen, how many people did you offend? The moment you went out, you ran into such a horrifying person." Shao Chen smiled and did not say anything. He had offended so many people that even he could not count them. "Who is this person?" Lord Jiu asked out of curiosity. "The White Emperor City's holy son, Shao Ho-ju." Lord Jiu sighed and said, "Young Master Shao, the number of people you offended is truly incredible. The White Emperor City's holy lord is one of the strongest people in the entire Kunlun realm." A thought occurred to Shao Chen. He said, "Lord Jiu, you have lived for more than 200 years already. Do you know how many people in our Kunlun continent can truly reach the peak?" Shao Chen had only been in the Kunlun realm for 6 years. He had been busy cultivating and did not know much about this. Kim Tae-ho also looked at old Jiu with great interest. Obviously, anyone would be interested in these legendary figures. Lord Jiu revealed a cocky expression. He smiled and said, "You youngsters really do not know much about such matters. This Lord Jiu is not clear on the situation of the heavenly starry ocean, so I will not talk about it. I will only talk about the 5 strongest people of the Kunlun realm's 5 domains. The Tianwu domain's Thunder King, the Fiend domain's the Fox King, the Ghost race's Dongyue Ghost Emperor, the Corpse race's Heaven Punishing Corpse God, and the Deity race's Emperor Forsaken. These 5 people can be considered the strongest experts of the Kunlun realm. As for the others, like the Primal Chaos domain's number 1 Loose Cultivator, the Heavenly Evil King, and the Profound domain's Saber Sword 2 Sovereigns, they are slightly weaker." Lord Jiu chatted excitedly, telling Shao Chen about the legendary deeds of these people. Shao Chen listened very carefully, feeling a boundless yearning in his heart. Finally, Lord Jiu said, "In the heavenly starry ocean, there are some people who are comparable to these 5 people. This Lord Jiu only knows of the Myriad Fiend Palace's Myriad Law Fiend Master. I am not sure about the others, so I do not have much say. The heavenly starry ocean did indeed have people who were comparable to these people. As far as Shao Chen knew, the Palace Master of the Zodiac Hall should not be weaker than these 5 people. The Thunder King, the Fox King, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor, the Heaven Punishing Corpse God, and Emperor Forsaken." Shao Chen wondered how strong these 5 people were. Right now, he probably did not even have the chance to meet them. The Fox King. Shao Chen suddenly recalled that the last time he met Bai, he seemed to have heard that the Fox King had adopted her as his daughter. At that time, Shao Chen did not know how strong the Fox King was. Now that he heard Lord Jiu say that the Fox King was comparable to the Thunder King and the others, he finally understood how fortunate Bai was. Cultivate. Otherwise, the next time Shao Chen met Bai, if he could not even compare to Bai, he would truly have failed. The Dragon's Gate's warship continued to move forward. Shao Chen stopped chatting and sat at the bow, preparing to use the time on the way to complete the spring saber of flawless 4 seasons. Shao Chen had already experienced the might of the completed winter saber long ago. If he comprehended all 4 seasons, then this flawless 4 seasons might not even be weaker than the subduing dragon profound slash. For some reason, Kim Tae-ho started thinking about the black goods on Lord Jiu. He kept pestering Lord Jiu, asking him to sell the black goods and hand them over to him to manage. Then, Lord Jiu guaranteed a 10-fold profit. Shao Chen continuously bragged about his glorious deeds in the Sky Dome realm, which actually tempted Lord Jiu. Half a month later, spring thunder suddenly roared in the sky above the Dragon's Gate's warship, shaking the Dragon's Gate's warship. Inside the warship's hold, Kim Tae-ho and Lord Jiu were discussing their grand business plans, looking very spirited. When they heard spring thunder, they quickly rushed out. The moment the two went out, they smelled a fragrant flower fragrance. Kim Tae-ho and Lord Jio were shocked to see that their surroundings had turned into a peach blossom forest. Peach trees covered the ground, and peach blossoms filled the branches before them. When the spring wind blew, boundless peach blossoms formed a beautiful land. Xiao Chen sat cross-legged in the depths of the peach blossom forest. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and heard a melodious saber hum. The peach blossom forest vanished, leaving only a section in Xiao Chen's palm. Using spring thunder as a guide, Xiao Chen made peach blossoms bloom for 5 kilometers around. After half a month, he finally figured out the final hurdle and completed the spring saber. Xiao Chen stood up and looked at the section of peach blossoms in his hand. Then, he smiled faintly and tossed it to the sky. King Chong. The peach blossom branch, which was only half the length of an arm, shattered. Boundless peach blossoms danced in the air, carrying a boundless saber intent. Every petal was a lethal weapon. With a thought, Xiao Chen stopped in satisfaction. The peach blossoms vanished, but the fragrance lingered in the air. Compared to the sharp winter saber, the spring saber was much gentler. However, this might, as well as the range of the ripples, the peach blossoms for 5 kilometers around, would not be any weaker than the winter saber. Have we arrived at the profound domain? Xiao Chen asked Kim Tae-ho and Lord Jio as he turned around. Given the speed of the Dragon's Gate's warship, they should have arrived by now. We arrived 3 days ago, Lord Jio answered. Xiao Chen took out a letter and handed it to Xiao Debao. This is a letter that I personally wrote. The two of you take this letter and go to the Ing clan to look for Ing Qiong. There should not be any problems dealing with that batch of illicit goods. To Ing Qiong, this was just a small matter. She did not even need to personally make a move. Xiao Chen had more important things to do, so he did not want to waste time on this. Young Master Xiao, you are not coming with us? Lord Jio asked, finding it strange. Xiao Chen placed a finger mark on Kim Tae-ho's forehead. Then, he said, I still have something to do. I'll lend you this warship for now. After I'm done, I'll meet up with you. After Xiao Chen spoke, he jumped off the bow of the warship. Kim Tae-ho checked himself and discovered that he could already control the Dragon's Gate's warship. He could roughly guess what Xiao Chen was going to do, so he could understand Xiao Chen's urgency. Smiling mischievously, Kim Tae-ho snatched Xiao Chen's letter while Lord Jio was not on his back. Then, he said, remember to listen to me when you go to the Ing clan. This fat lord is an expert in this aspect. You can just be this fat lord's manservant. That way, you won't give yourself away and get the price pushed down. Lord Jio felt somewhat confused. Was he the one selling the goods or Fatso the one selling the goods? How did he become the manservant? Sidu Leihong was the most famous forger in the profound domain, a grandmaster who could forge subdivine weapons. Xiao Chen followed the address that First Senior Sister gave him and unfurled the freedom wings. He flew past mountains, rivers, and cities. When he arrived at a mountain manor at the summit of a tall mountain, he put away the freedom wings and landed. The mountain manor was not big, and the signboard was not obvious. However, the queue at the entrance stretched as far as the eye could see, stretching all the way to the bottom of the mountain. All of them were cultivators seeking a master to forge swords for them. Xiao Chen landed at the side. As he held the lunar shadow saber in his hand, he was flabbergasted. He discovered that there was no lack of Grandmaster-level martial sages. He even saw 2 or 3 great Grandmaster-level martial sages obediently lining up at the back without any complaints. Such a lineup completely surpassed Xiao Chen's expectations. He could not help but wonder, is what First Senior Sister said reliable or not? Can I really enter just by relying on my identity token? The main gate was tightly shut. Only a small door at the side was open. The cultivators in line all stood in front of the small door, knocking on the door until they reached the foot of the mountain. They stood about 3 meters apart from each other, waiting anxiously. Strange, why is no one knocking on the door? Where did this little fellow come from? He is holding a saber and running to the sword-forging peak. Is he here to cause trouble? As Xiao Chun stood outside the line, it would be hard for him to not attract attention from a group of swordsmen while holding the lunar shadow saber. Not long after Xiao Chun landed, someone started berating him. Since ancient times, the debate between the saber and the sword had never ceased. The saber was different from other weapons. The saber was born from the sword. There were swords and sabers in the world. With such a direct relationship, it was hard to avoid comparisons between the two. Out of respect for the master, Xiao Chun did not want to cause trouble here. His priority was to revive Ao Jiao. Xiao Chun looked at the person who spoke. That person carried a 1-meter-long sword and wore purple robes. His hair was tied into a bun, and there were 2 strands of purple scarves fluttering in the wind, looking elegant and free. This person was not more than 40 years old. He could be considered an outstanding talent of the younger generation. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, a strong sense of sharpness in them. Xiao Chun said calmly, "Although I am a bladesman, I do not have any intention of competing with swords here. I am here to ask Master Situ for a favor and am not being disrespectful." However, the purple-robed swordsman smiled coldly and said, "Look at the swordsmen on this mountain. They are all here on foot to ask Master Situ to forge a sword. No one makes a ruckus, no one makes a fuss, and no one dares to fly down from the sky. There are even great grandmaster-level experts lining up respectfully at the foot of the mountain. You, a bladesman descending from the sky, is very impressive. However, if this is not disrespect, then what is?" The other swordsmen in the line glared at the purple-robed swordsman. They were already upset that someone descended from the sky. Furthermore, this person was a bladesman. Naturally, they were even more upset. Xiao Chun held the lunar shadow saber and performed a cupped fist salute. "Sorry, I did not know there was such a rule here. I will go down the mountain and line up. After I enter, I will personally apologize to Master Situ. The master only sees 5 people a day and only forges 1 sword a month. You, a bladesman, are here to join in the fun? You want to take up our spots?" Scram! The purple-robed swordsman ignored Xiao Chun's concession and aggressively chased him away. "I am not here to forge a sword. There is no need to misunderstand." Xiao Chun's hand, which held the lunar shadow saber, trembled slightly. However, he did not get angry in the end. After saying that, he turned around and walked down the mountain. Xiao Chun did not want to lose the hope that he had obtained after so much difficulty. "How stubborn! I told you to scram, not to leave." The purple-robed swordsman shouted coldly, and a light flickered under his feet. A magnificent sword formation formed, and hundreds of purple sword chi flew out from the formation. The sword chi flew around the purple-robed swordsman, giving off a melodious hum. A sharp sword intent immediately spread throughout the entire mountain. The grass bent over, not daring to raise its head. Chapter 953. This person flicked his finger, and a strand of resplendent sword chi turned into a beam of light and shot out. Its sharpness was overwhelming, able to pierce through mountains and shatter rocks. Xiao Chen's face sank slightly. He quickly turned around and used the lunar shadow saber to block, using his body as a saber. When he raised his hand, it was like a treasure saber being unsheathed, radiating a sharp light. Bang! When the unyielding sword chi struck the saber scabbard, it gave off a crisp sound. It was like a treasure sword breaking, turning into sword lights and scattering, not injuring Xiao Chen at all. Xiao Chen easily blocked the purple-robed swordsman's overbearing sword chi. This scene immediately attracted the attention of many people. "Hey, it is actually an expert. It looks like he is really here to cause trouble." However, he chose the wrong person to pick the Purple Knight sword sex Ouyang Feng. Among the younger generation of the profound domain, Ouyang Feng is one of the youths with the most potential to enter the sword school ranking. Aside from the few disciples that the sword sovereign personally taught, not many can defeat him. Young Master Feng's eyes are indeed sharp. You can tell with one glance. This white-robed bladesman has bad intentions. He came to Sword Forging Peak to cause trouble. With just a little testing, he gave himself away. Young Master Ouyang's sword intent has already reached peak 90% comprehension and is close to condensing a sword soul. Perhaps he might be able to gain an audience with Great Master Situ. Great Master Situ's rules are really strange. He forges swords based on the person. Just by saying that he is not fated with swords, he does not even give face to Emperor Wu. Great Master Situ is someone who can even forge a divine weapon. He is completely qualified to not give face to Emperor Wu. It would be better if a sovereign martial emperor came. All sorts of discussions went on. When Xiao Chen heard them, he could not help but smile bitterly. How deep is the prejudice that the swordsmen of Sword Forging Peak have against bladesmen? Xiao Chen said calmly, "There is no need to force me. I am not here to forge a sword or to cause trouble. I just have something to ask of Great Master." Ouyang Feng said sullenly, "I managed to find out with one move, and you still dare to quibble? Do you think that all the swordsmen of my Sword Forging Peak are blind? If you do not scram today, I will beat you until you do so." Ouyang Feng stepped forward and jumped out of the queue, pressing down on Xiao Chen. Ouyang Feng's purple robes fluttered, and the sword formation beneath his feet spread out, one ring after another. If one were to take a closer look, they would discover that it was a large sword formation composed of 81 smaller sword formations. The sword formation was interlinked. 81 strands of sword light danced back and forth in the formation, which was covered in purple mist. They formed a powerful sword intent that was infinitely close to the sword's soul. As for Ouyang Feng, who was in the center of the formation, the sword chi around his body was oppressive. With every step he took, he drew in countless sword chi from the swords as if he was the king of swords. This was the famous Violet Firmament sword technique of the Violet Firmament sword sect. It was developed from the sword domain by a grandmaster of the Violet Firmament sword sect. It vaguely resembled the sword domain. Ouyang Feng hugged his sword and walked over step by step, pressing down on Xiao Chen. The wind from his sword whistled, and his aura was oppressive. Behind him was a precipitous cliff that was tens of thousands of meters tall. He was using this to force Xiao Chen, and it was obvious that he wanted to use this kind of ruthless method to chase Xiao Chen away. Xiao Chen felt helpless. Sometimes, the more you don't want to cause trouble, the more trouble will come to you. Xiao Chen kept making concessions, but the other party did not appreciate it. Instead, he became even more overbearing. Xiao Chen was clearly forced to retaliate, yet he was slandered as hiding his strength and harboring evil intentions. If not for reviving Ao Jiao and leaving Sword Forging Peak, Xiao Chen would not have needed to be polite with this fellow before him. A murderous intent flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. However, he still endured it. He opened his sea of consciousness, and the purple lightning talisman spun around, materializing a bolt of spring thunder in the sky. Flawless Saber Dao, flawless 4 seasons, spring saber. With a thought, peach blossoms fell, and the sky immediately turned pink. When Xiao Chen looked up, the flower petals formed a long river that stretched for 5 kilometers. A floral fragrance assaulted the nose, spreading everywhere. The many pink petals all contained Xiao Chen's small perfection saber soul. Spring overflowed with boundless life force. The flowers and grass on the slope that were suppressed by the sword intent bloomed and swelled wildly. In the depths of the peach blossoms, Xiao Chen stretched out his hand, and the thousands of peach blossoms gathered into a peach blossom branch. 7 or 8 flower buds appeared on the branch, waiting to bloom. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand, and the peach blossom branch pierced through the sword intent with overwhelming killing chi. Then, it stabbed into Ouyang Feng's purple knight sword formation. Spring thunder roared again, and the 7 or 8 flower buds on the branch bloomed together with the thunder, proudly blooming amid the sharp sword chi. 81 small sword formations stopped operating one after another, forming a large formation that was interconnected with each other. An even stronger force suppressed them, stopping them from operating. Ouyang Feng paled. The purple knight sword art circulated frantically in his body. However, the sword formation under his feet did not listen to him. That small peach blossom suppressed it until it could not move. Ouyang Feng, who was deep in the center of the sword formation, could not help but show a sullen expression. He stretched out his hand and drew his sword, preparing to charge out. I advise you not to move. These 81 sword formations are already completely broken. They are just suppressed. If you take a step, this balance will immediately break. You will bear the brunt of it. Not only will you have to face your own purple knight sword formation, but you will also have to face my spring saber. You will die without a complete corpse in a moment. As the mountain wind blew, Xiao Chun held the lunar shadow saber expressionlessly as he spoke calmly. You bastard, where did this fellow come from? I am an elite disciple of the Purple Knight Sword sect. How dare you offend me at Sword Forging Peak? Are you tired of living? Do you think I will be frightened by your nonsense? Ouyang Feng easily suppressed by Xiao Chen's attack. Ouyang Feng lost all his elegance and started cursing. Nephew Ouyang, don't move. A shout came from an old man carrying a sword at the waist of the mountain. This old man arrived with one step, and a melodious sword hum rang out. His body was as straight as a sword. While his voice was still echoing, he had already arrived at the summit. Xiao Qin thought, the person who arrived is a great grandmaster level martial sage swordsman. When this person looked at Xiao Qin, his sword light seemed solid, giving Xiao Qin immense pressure. He wanted to force Xiao Qin back with one look. However, Xiao Qin possessed a saber soul, and his immortal will of thunder had reached 40% comprehension. Although his aura was not as strong as the other parties, he would not retreat so easily. Xiao Qin stood straight, his feet planted firmly on the ground. He did not move at all, not avoiding this person's gaze at all. After the old man shouted at Ouyang Feng, who was in the sword formation, to stop, he checked. His back immediately became drenched in cold sweat. He was greatly frightened. Xiao Qin was not lying at all. He was very clear on the might of his Purple Knight sword formation. The peach tree branch that could suppress the Purple Knight sword formation would only be even more horrifying. When the two overlapped, there should have been a startling shock wave. However, due to the ingenuity of the peach tree branch, it formed a delicate balance. If the balance was broken, what would happen to Ouyang Feng, who was in the sword formation? Just thinking about it made him tremble in fear. When Ouyang Feng saw the old man rushing over, it was like he saw his savior. He said hurriedly, "Uncle Diao, kill this fellow and save me." The moment Ouyang Feng said that, the expressions of the swordsmen lining up at the summit changed drastically. Unexpectedly, what Xiao Qin said was true. A peach tree branch broke the Purple Knight sword formation, suppressing Ouyang Feng to the point where he did not dare to move at all. This scene also attracted the gazes of the cultivators going in and out of the tightly shut main doors. My dear nephew offended you earlier. Little friend, please remove the restriction, the old man with the family name Diao said as he looked at Xiao Qin, ignoring Ouyang Feng's words. As a great grandmaster-level swordsman, how could Ouyang Feng compare to the old man's vision? With one glance, he could tell that Xiao Qin had shown mercy. Ouyang Feng's life and death were in the hands of the other party. Yet, Ouyang Feng still insisted on killing Xiao Qin. This was simply seeking death. How could the old man with the family name Diao listen to him? When facing the old man with surging sword intent, Xiao Qin was neither servile nor overbearing. He said calmly, "This Zhao's original intention was not to compete with the strong. Since Senior said so, I will let you go." Right after Xiao Qin spoke, the The small peach blossom in the sword formation exploded together with the boundless sword chi of the purple knight sword formation, turning into peach blossoms dancing in the air. The sound of sabers and swords clashing came from the petals. Thousands of petals fell like rain, adding to the charm of sword forging peak. Die! Without any restraints, Ouyang Feng instantly drew his sword. He moved with his sword, turning into a beam of purple light as he charged at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen had anticipated this long ago, so he did not panic. Rings of electric light appeared behind him, and thunder roared. Then, he gently drew the lunar shadow saber. Xiao Chen pushed aside the extremely vicious sword light that sneak attacked him. He took a step forward and grasped his scabbard. In the time it took for a spark to fly, he jabbed at Ouyang Feng's back. Dang! A sword formation appeared under Ouyang Feng's feet. In a fluster, he turned around and blocked Xiao Chen's saber strike. Without drawing his saber, Xiao Chen materialized the flawless saber Dao, using his body as a saber. The sheathed lunar shadow saber in his hand became one with his body. Then, he swung his saber at Ouyang Feng's face at an extremely crafty angle. Ouyang Feng quickly retreated. Xiao Chen's movements were casual and unrestrained, like a heavenly steed flying in the sky. He weaved through the purple knight sword formation, relying only on his saber techniques to suppress Ouyang Feng until he could not move an inch. The old man with the family name Diao could no longer continue watching. He stepped forward and used his finger as a sword. A surging sword intent erupted endlessly and knocked Xiao Chen back. Little friend, stop here. There is no need to push things too far. Xiao Chen moved back and remained silent. The old man's words were not fair at all, making him feel very uncomfortable. However, if he could make a big problem into a small one, then he would let it go. Bastard, after hitting me, you still want to leave? Scram back! Another soaring sword hum rang out. Just as Xiao Chen turned around, Ouyang Feng charged out from behind the old man and soared into the air. 81 sword formations formed in the air around him, forming a vast array. When Xiao Chen looked up, he saw purple sword lights filling the sky, looking very mighty. Ouyang Feng stood in the sword formation, giving off a dazzling light. The sword intent in his body rose infinitely as he chopped down at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen kept his spiritual sense spread out into the surroundings at all times. He would be able to sense the slightest movement in the wind and react very quickly to Ouyang Feng's next attack. Peach blossoms bloomed, the summer sun rose, the autumn wind blew, the winter snow drifted, the flawless 4 seasons. All sorts of scenes flashed around Xiao Chen, cycling endlessly. Xiao Chen stood there, unmoving like a mountain. Without drawing his saber, he also sent out a saber strike, clashing with the attack. Chapter 954. The might of the flawless 4 seasons, which had already replenished spring and winter, was more than 20% stronger than before. Compared to Ouyang Feng's purple knight sword formation, it was much stronger. This time, Xiao Chen did not show any mercy, using 80% of his strength. When he swung his saber, a boundless saber intent surged out, knocking Ouyang Feng, who was swinging his sword in the air, into the air. The 81 small purple knight sword formations all shattered, turning into countless strands of sword chi flying in the air. The old man with the family name Diao caught Ouyang Feng's body and checked it. Then, he could not help feeling enraged. 4 different kinds of energy wandered in Ouyang Feng's body, injuring his meridians and internal organs. Without half a year of recuperation and miraculous medicinal pills, he would not be able to recover. The other party looked like he did not have a temper, retreating time and time again. However, when he was truly enraged, he attacked very ruthlessly, nearly crippling Ouyang Feng without a sound. Little friend, don't you think you are too ruthless? The old man with the family name Diao asked coldly as he looked at Xiao Chen. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes. This fellow is finished. Diao Jintao and Ouyang Feng's father are old friends. This white-robed bladesman injured Ouyang Feng. There is no way to resolve this peacefully. I wonder how badly he injured Ouyang Feng to provoke Diao Jintao to this extent. No one can save him. Diao Jintao is a great grandmaster-level martial sage swordsman. He can kill him in 10 moves. What is a bladesman doing here at Sword Forging Peak? He thinks that the great grandmaster-level martial sage will meet him. He only has himself to blame for this. Seeing Diao Jintao angry, many people started discussing him. The one-punch swordsman did not like Xiao Qin. He had a deep prejudice against swords and sabers. Xiao Qin did not feel that he had done anything wrong. There was a limit to one's tolerance. It was impossible for him to remain calm when the other party kept attacking him. Unfortunately, he could no longer remain at this sword-forging peak. He would have to go look for other blacksmiths. I attacked ruthlessly? It looks like Senior's old eyes are really blind. If you want to attack, just attack. However, it is impossible for you to make me stay. The freedom wings on Xiao Chen's back spread open, and he looked at the other party calmly, not backing down at all. Wrong was wrong, right was right. He could not distinguish right from wrong. Even a great grandmaster did not need to give him any face. Diao Jintao was so angry that he laughed. It has been a long time since I have seen such an arrogant junior. If I cannot make you stay today, there is no need for me to continue staying in the profound domain. A surging sword intent spread out from every corner of Xiao Chen's body. Dense blue rings of light appeared behind him. He now had 3,000 complete heavenly sage laws. The cultivation behind Xiao Chen made him feel an immense pressure. Sword hums could be heard from each of the light wheels. Creak. As Diao Jintao's aura reached its peak, the tightly shut gates of the manor suddenly opened. A doorman walked out and asked in a crisp voice, "Who is Xiao Chen? The manor lord invites you over." For a moment, everyone's gazes were attracted by the open main gate. A commotion quickly spread from the swordsmen lining up at the peak to the foot of the mountain. The gates of the sword forging manor are open. This gate has not been opened for more than 100 years, right? The last time it opened, it seemed like the profound domain's sword sovereign came personally. Only then did Master Sidhu open the gate. Who is this Xiao Chen? Why does he sound familiar? Even the heavily injured Ouyang Feng and Diao Jintao, who were preparing to make a move, were shocked and looked over. Is Xiao Chen here? Is the Haotian sex white-robed Xiao Chen here? The manor lord invites you over. The doorman shouted again. The somewhat confused Xiao Chen quickly stepped forward and handed his identity token to the doorman. I am. This is my identity token. The doorman received the identity token and checked it. Then, he nodded and said, "Hee. It is indeed you. The manor lord has not opened the gates for 100 years. Unexpectedly, after 100 years, the one to welcome him is a bladesman. Come in, then." This time, all the swordsmen on the mountain were stunned. The one Sidhu Leihong welcomed was actually this bladesman. This was too shocking. Diao Jintao looked at the closed gates and muttered, "I came a few times to ask Sidhu Leihong to help me forge a treasure sword. However, he did not even want to see me. He always dismissed me by saying that I am not fated with swords." White-robed Xiao Chen. So, it is him. He is the person who kicked Diwuk in the Sage Mark Monument 3 years ago. No wonder. He even dared to kick Diwuk. How could he give face to a great Grandmaster-level martial sage? Ouyang Feng is really blind. I heard that he even killed the Medicine God Valley's Mr. Qin in the Primal Chaos domain. However, why did the Great Master open the gates for him? Isn't he a bladesman? Some Emperor Wu came to ask for a sword, but the Great Master blocked him at the gates. He insisted on testing his fate with sword. Without a fate with swords, no matter how powerful his backer or how much money he offered, he would not forge a sword for him. The scenery inside the mountain manor was different. The first thing that entered Xiao Chen's eyes was a courtyard filled with thousands of ancient swords. A swordsman came in through a small door. This swordsman frowned as he walked through the courtyard filled with ancient swords. Occasionally, he would make a move, pulling the ancient sword beside him. The ancient swords buzzed. As the swordsman held the sword hilt, it was like all the ancient swords in the courtyard were connected. The drifting sword chi surged in the air, forming a vast and surging sword intent that was as vast as the sea. The swordsman did not just hold one ancient sword but 1,000 ancient swords in the courtyard. In the end, even after using all his vital chi and laws, he could not draw a single sword. All the swordsmen walking in the courtyard showed unsightly expressions. They frowned heavily, their eyes filled with confusion and confusion. Xiao Chen walked along the corridor with the doorman. As he looked at these swordsmen, he entered deep thought. This is the Manor Lord's test. Only a swordsman who can draw an ancient sword has a fate with swords. Only then can the Manor Lord forge a sword for him, the doorman explained when he saw Xiao Chen's gaze. However, since the Manor Lord personally invited you, there is no need for you to take such a test. Xiao Chen smiled. His first senior sister was right. As long as he handed over his identity medallion, he would be able to enter. After passing the courtyard filled with ancient swords, Xiao Chen did not see another sword in the mountain manor. Instead, he saw flowers, trees, courtyards, corridors, fake mountains, and many other natural beauties. The doorman brought Xiao Chen to a large hall and stopped. Wait for a while. Earlier, a fiend race girl obtained a fate with swords. The Manor Lord is currently receiving her. Xiao Chen held the lunar shadow saber and nodded, not objecting. Outside the hall, Xiao Chen chatted with the doorman. He learned many things about Sidu Leihong. Only then did they realize that this Grandmaster's position in the mysterious regions Sword Dao had reached an unimaginable level. Without exception, all the famous swordsmen in the profound domain had swords forged by a Grandmaster. The one that people talked about the most was the divine weapon of the profound domain's sword sovereign, the Scarlet Firmament Sword. This was Situ Leihong's pinnacle work. It was also the divine weapon that made him famous throughout the Kunlun realm. Spirit weapons and secret treasures were two different systems. Compared to the former, the latter had many variations. Sabers, swords, pagodas, treasured mirrors, fans, bronze rings, palaces, and so on could all be secret treasures. Spirit weapons were much simpler, just weapons. The highest level was divine weapons. The biggest difference between secret treasures and secret treasures was that secret treasures were born from magic treasures. However, spirit weapons were unique to the martial epoch. The people who forged secret treasures and spirit weapons had different statuses. The former were known as blacksmiths, while the latter were known as blacksmith. After this conversation, Xiao Chen did not feel bored. Instead, it broadened his horizons. Thinking of something, Xiao Chen asked, I came from the Sky Dome realm. I once heard that only 10 divine weapons are allowed to exist in the world. However, my heavenly saber pavilion has always had one divine weapon, the heavenly universe saber. The bellboy smiled and said, That is not quite right. It is not that only 10 divine weapons are allowed to exist. Rather, only 10 divine weapons can make it onto the divine weapon ranking. The heavenly universe saber once made it onto the divine weapon ranking. However, it was no longer there long ago. If it is not on the divine weapon ranking, it will not possess divine might. At best, it will be equal to an emperor-grade secret treasure. It is not sufficient to face those primordial emperor treasures. Just as Xiao Chen was about to ask what the divine weapon ranking was, the bellboy stopped speaking and revealed a listening expression. The doorman stopped talking and revealed an attentive expression. Someone was probably transmitting a message to him. After a while, the bellboy said, That fiend race girl has already left. Please come in. Xiao Chen tidied up his appearance and looked at the lunar shadow saber that he could not draw. After calming his emotions, he pushed the door open and entered. Sit. The moment Xiao Chen entered, he heard a clear and powerful voice inviting him to sit. A middle-aged man with a scholarly air and dressed in blue robes sat in the seat in the middle. It was like a blazing flame was hidden in his body, storing up power and waiting to be unleashed. However, the expression in his eyes was as calm as autumn water, easily suppressing that berserk flame. Instead, he gave off a scholarly air. This person must be Sidhu Lehong. Xiao Chen felt startled. Unexpectedly, he could not make out this person's cultivation at all. Was he a great grandmaster-level martial sage, the blue-robed emperor, or something even higher? He could not figure it out. However, Sidhu Lehong did not give off any aura that would put pressure on Xiao Chen. There was only a demeanor that surpassed that of a grandmaster-level martial sage circulating around his body. It was natural, not showing any signs of pretense. The most important thing was that Sidhu Lehong's aura was very different from what Xiao Chen imagined. After Xiao Chen sat down, a maidservant brought tea over and invited Xiao Chen to take his time. Sidhu Lehong sized up Xiao Chen and said, "Ing Tianzong has accepted a good student. At such a young age, he already has the air of a grandmaster. His saber soul is also considered to have reached small perfection, comparable to the disciples of the profound domain's Wu Shaotian." Lord Jia once said that the profound domain had two peak experts, the saber sword two sovereigns. They were second only to the Thunder King, the Fox King, the Dongyue Ghost Emperor, the Heaven-Punishing Corpse God, and Emperor Forsaken. These were the peak sovereign martial emperors of the present age. The Ing Tianzong that Sidhu Lehong mentioned was the name of the Haotian martial emperor, and Wu Shaotian was the saber sovereign of the saber sword two sovereigns. Only someone of Sidhu Lehong's status could directly address these two people by their names. However, Xiao Chen had always been good at reading people's expressions. Although the Grandmaster's words were praising Xiao Chen, his tone was very calm. In other words, the Grandmaster meant that Xiao Chen could be considered a genius, barely catching his eye. Xiao Chen took a sip of tea and did not say anything. This person's standards were very high. Xiao Chen could see some suspicions from the rules he set. Chapter 955. The saber was born from the sword. For the sake of understanding the special characteristics of the saber, I learned some saber technique. Little friend Xiao Chen, if you do not mind, how about we exchange pointers? Sidhu Lehong was not in a rush to speak. Instead, he wanted to compete with Xiao Chen in saber technique. Sidhu Lehong clapped his hands, and a servant stepped forward, bringing out two undrawn sabers, not giving Xiao Chen a chance to refuse. Sidhu Lehong made an inviting gesture, letting Xiao Chen choose his saber first. Xiao Chen stood up and said, "If Senior is willing to bestow a move, I am naturally willing to exchange pointers. However, I am already used to the saber in my hand. I hope you can forgive me." "As you wish, then." Sidhu Lehong did not feel upset about this. Instead, some appreciation flashed in his eyes as he clapped his hands. The hall suddenly started spinning, moving very quickly. Before Xiao Chen could understand what was going on, the environment before him turned into a vast drill ground. A cold saber appeared in Sidhu Lehong's hand. The flickering light seemed to merge with the sky, giving off a vague feeling of merging with the sky. Sidhu Lehong took one step and charged over to Xiao Chen. A melodious saber hum resounded everywhere. When he swung his saber, he left behind an inextinguishable saber light in the air, looking resplendent and dazzling. Xiao Chen felt mildly shocked. Although Sidhu Lehong had not comprehended saber intent, the saber light he condensed was no weaker than that of bladesmen with 90% comprehended saber intent. Those who were not sure would definitely mistake Sidhu Lehong for an expert of the saber Dao. Before Xiao Chen could think, the saber light had already arrived before him. As he grasped the lunar shadow saber, he materialized the flawless saber Dao. The saber merged with his body. When he raised his hand, it was like he had drawn a treasure saber. Dang! The scabbard blocked Sidhu Lehong's saber light. Shock flashed in Sidu Leihong's eyes as he quickly changed his move. The sound of a volcano erupting resounded. Sidu Leihong's figure flashed, and an unparalleled tyrannical saber light attacked from the right. Xiao Chen's long hair fluttered without any wind. His saber soul, which had evolved into saber intent, burst out from every corner of his body. Now, the saber was no longer restricted to the saber in his hand. The first 100 saber hums overlapped. With a twist, Xiao Chen switched from defense to offense, forcing Sidu Leihong to retreat. The two of them did not intend to use any martial technique. They relied purely on their saber techniques to fight an intense battle in the drill ground. Honestly speaking, Sidu Leihong's skills with the saber were excellent. Even a proper bladesman like Xiao Chen secretly praised him. However, the other party's heart was not on the saber Dao at all. His love for the saber was fundamentally different from Xiao Chen's. Without using any martial techniques, Sidu Leihong would not be able to block the flawless saber Dao, which contained all of Xiao Chen's comprehension of saber technique. Xiao Chen tilted his body and chopped down. Boundless saber lights flickered. Using his body as a saber and his shoulder as a blade, the incredible saber technique immediately knocked Sidu Leihong back. Then, Sidu Leihong saw 3,000 strands of black hair flying over. Each strand was like a treasured saber. He had no choice but to take another step back. Ding! Amid the thousands of strands of saber light, a rainbow light flashed. It was Xiao Chen holding the lunar shadow saber's scabbard. In the time it took for a spark to fly, he took advantage of Sidu Leihong's continuous retreat to use the scabbard to tap his opponent's chest. Retreat. Xiao Chen did not truly tap Sidu Leihong's chest, only gently touching him. Then, he retreated at lightning speed. "Senior, there is no need to continue with this exchange," Xiao Chen said calmly as he landed on the ground. Sidu Leihong felt interested in Xiao Chen's novel saber Dao. "Haha. It's fine. I am just a bladesman who changed my path halfway through my training. You cannot injure me, so just attack. There is no need to show mercy. Let's continue." Xiao Chen shook his head and said, "Senior, since you do not understand the saber, why the need to be so stubborn?" Sidu Leihong's face sank and the smile on his face disappeared. He said coldly, "You say that I do not understand the saber? Even the profound domain's Emperor Wu would not dare to say that. Senior has a powerful treasure saber, and your saber techniques are excellent, not inferior to a first-rate bladesman's. However, if you do not understand, then you do not understand. If you truly understood, how could you not comprehend saber intent?" After a long time, Sidu Leihong smiled faintly and said, "You have the same bad temper as Ing Zongtian. Back then, he criticized my saber techniques as worthless. That precious disciple of his praised your saber techniques in his letter. Now that I see it, it is rather unique. You created it yourself, right? What is it called?" Xiao Chen answered honestly, "Flawless." When Sidu Leihong heard the word flawless, his expression clearly changed. Then, he smiled in disappointment and frustration. "Flawless? How can there be something truly flawless in the world? I once thought that the sword was the most perfect weapon in the world. However, if it were truly flawless, how could it give birth to a weapon like the saber?" A thought occurred to Xiao Chen. He said, "Senior, by studying saber techniques, are you thinking of using it to make up for the sword's inadequacies, forging a truly flawless sword?" "That's right. The highest point of a spirit weapon is a divine weapon. I want to forge a flawless sword that surpasses a divine weapon. Unfortunately, even after 100 years, I have not made any progress. Let's not talk about this for now. Let's talk about you." Sidu Leihong waved his hand, and the world spun around. The scene before Xiao Chen returned to the Great Hall. Sidu Leihong's cultivation was unfathomable. With such means, Xiao Chen was not surprised. He handed the lunar shadow saber to Sidu Leihong and said, "I would like Senior to help me take a look at this saber." Sidu Leihong received the lunar shadow saber and casually drew it. A resplendent saber light lit up the entire great hall, dazzling everyone. When Sidu Leihong drew the lunar shadow saber by 1 centimeter, Xiao Chen's expression immediately changed drastically. Sidu Leihong reacted very quickly withdrawing the saber with a clang. Xiao Chen had tried to draw the lunar shadow saber many times, but he could not. Furthermore, Su Xiaoxiao said that the embryo soul in the saber was extremely weak. The saber could not see light, so Xiao Chen did not try to draw it again. Unexpectedly, Sidu Leihong managed to draw it easily. Xiao Chen quickly stepped forward and asked, "Senior, is the embryo soul in there fine?" Sidu Leihong put down the lunar shadow saber and said, "It's fine. It is not that weak. You came to me because you want to nourish the embryo soul into an item spirit, right?" Xiao Chen heaved a sigh of relief. "Senior, do you have a way? If it were an ordinary saber, it would be easy for me to nourish an item spirit even though I am a swordsmith. It would not take much effort. However, this one is somewhat problematic." Xiao Chen said calmly, "Senior, just be straightforward. Just tell me the conditions you need. I do not have any hopes of achieving them immediately." Sidu Leihong grasped the lunar shadow saber again and said, "The rare divine materials of the world are nothing to me. I do not lack any of them. On account of Ying Tianzong, I will help you pay for them. However, there are 3 things that you will have to find on your own." "Which 3? Soul returning grass, permetha flower, and 3 life stone." Xiao Chen stood up and said, "Many thanks, Senior. If I find these 3 things, will I be able to summon back the item spirit?" "What's wrong? You doubt my ability?" "Without the embryo soul, I would not dare to say that. However, since I said it, I naturally have complete confidence." Sidu Leihong showed displeasure on his face. Xiao Chen rejoiced. He performed a cupped fist salute and said, "Many thanks, Senior. I will never forget this favor. Xiao Chen will definitely repay it in the future." "Don't be in a rush to leave." Sidu Leihong stopped Xiao Chen. Then, he smiled and said, "On account of Ying Tianzong, I can help you pay for the divine materials. However, helping you summon back the item spirit is not free. Earlier, when the Fox King's adoptive daughter came over, I did not help her for free." "Senior, please speak your mind." Sidu Leihong said, "In the profound domain, there is a sword school ranking and a saber school ranking. They have been passed down since the ancient era. Right now, they are in the hands of the sword sovereign, Lu Xiaoyun, and the saber sovereign, Wu Xiaotian. The ranking happens once every 10 years. Every time, it attracts the attention of the profound domain's bladesmen and swordsmen. There are still 4 months before the 2 rankings begin. The top 10 of the saber school ranking will obtain a piece of 10,000-year-old flame gold. I want you to help me get it." Xiao Chen thought for a while before replying, 10,000-year-old flame gold? I will personally hand it to Senior 4 months later." Sidu Leihong smiled and said, "Your tone is really big. Do you think that there is no one in my profound domain? This saber school ranking does not prohibit the older generation cultivators from participating. As long as one is not the blue-robed emperor, one can participate. Senior, just wait for the good news. Goodbye." When Xiao Chen walked out of the door, he felt like he had forgotten something. Suddenly, he recalled that Sidu Leihong said that the fiend race girl who came first was the Fox King's adoptive daughter. The Fox King's adoptive daughter? Isn't that Bai? Xiao Chen turned around and prepared to enter the great hall to ask Sidu Leihong about it. Who knew the doors were tightly shut? No matter how he pushed them, they would not open. "Ha ha! Young master, the manor lord already has a new guest. I'll bring you out," the bellboy said to Xiao Chen with a smile when he appeared. Xiao Chen sighed. Xiao Bai had made a trip here, but they had to brush past each other. What a pity! However, he had proper matters to attend to now. He had to ask Ying Qiong about the soul-returning grass, the permetha flower, and the 3 life stone. He also had to figure out the matter of the saber school ranking. Inside the great hall, right after Shao Chun left, the Haotian emperor silently appeared. Zhong Tian, this disciple of yours is really fearless. He does not care about the saber school ranking at all. He did not even ask where the soul returning grass, the 3 life stone, and the Permetha flower are before agreeing. Sidu Leihong smiled faintly. He was not surprised at Ing Zongtian's appearance at all. Or rather, Ing Zongtian had arrived long ago. Ing Zongtian smiled and said, "Little Lei, it has been so many years since we last met, but you are still as black-hearted as before. You got my disciple to obtain the 10,000-year-old flame crystal, and the Fox King's adoptive daughter to obtain the 10,000-year-old essence iron from the sword school ranking. Just by opening your mouth, you obtained both items." Sidu Leihong's face turned black in the blink of an eye. "How many times have I said it? Don't call me Little Lei. I am already more than 200 years old." Ing Zongtian smiled and said, "What's wrong? You are not convinced? If you are not convinced, then reincarnate earlier. I am an old monster over 2,000 years old. Even if you live another 100 years, you will still be called Little Lei." "Good. Good. Good. I can't beat you. Let's talk about proper matters. How confident are you of breaking through to Sovereign Martial Emperor?" Sidu Leihong stopped arguing and asked about another matter. "Originally, I was 100% confident. However, there were some problems with the 3 holy masters. It is hard to say whether they will make a move or not." Sidu Leihong raised his eyebrows and asked, "What's wrong? Is it because of that brat earlier?" "That's right. The 3 holy masters are certain that they are not willing to see the Qing Emperor's descendant rise up. However, you are standing out to support him. Aren't you just finding trouble for yourself?" Ing Zongtian did not seem to mind. He said somewhat casually, "It is not difficult to become a sovereign martial emperor. It is also not difficult to become a powerful sovereign martial emperor like the Thunder King or Emperor Forsaken. However, if you go any higher, it is a dead end. No one can reach it." Chapter 956. What was above a powerful sovereign martial emperor? Naturally, it was the legendary martial god. However, everyone knew that there were no martial gods in the world. Even someone as strong as the Qing Emperor, unrivaled in his era, was not a martial god. Even someone like the Thunder King, who had lived for more than 10,000 years and was publicly recognized as the strongest expert in the world, was not a martial god. Sidu Leihong could tell from Ing Zongtian's words that he was very ambitious. Even powerful experts like the Thunder King and Emperor Forsaken had not become his goal. Could it be that you want to become a martial god? Your goal is too unrealistic. Ing Zongtian withdrew the smile on his face. His tone turned somewhat grave as he said, "Martial god? I have never thought of it before. After accumulating for 1,000 years, I have already reached my limit. Even after exhausting all my potential, I will only reach the level of Emperor Forsaken. I only want to know what kind of cultivation realm martial god is." The ancient sages were too ruthless. If they left, then so be it. In the end, they did not even leave behind a word. They even erased all traces of themselves in the Kunlun realm, not leaving any information behind, abandoning the entire Kunlun realm. I have nothing else to ask for in this life. I just want to know what kind of existence that cultivation realm is. I only want one person to reach that realm. Don't be too ruthless. Just tell me what kind of cultivation realm it is. Sidu Leihong could hear the sorrow in Ing Zongtian's words. After accumulating for 1,000 years, if he became a sovereign personage, he would immediately become an expert on the level of the Sword Sovereign or the Saber Sovereign, even stronger than the 3 holy masters. However, even such a talented person still filled his heart with doubts. Even Sidu Leihong himself could not be sure if there were martial gods in this world. He could not be sure if there was a peak above the peak. Was the end of the martial epoch a dead end? This was the sorrow in Ing Zongtian's heart. However, it was also the sorrow of all the cultivators in the Kunlun realm. What was a dead end? You had to put in a lot of effort, cutting your way through brambles and thorns, climbing your way up, experiencing hundreds of battles, undergoing 9 tribulations. However, even standing at the peak, you still could not escape death. So what if someone as strong as the Thunder King did not die for 10,000 years? In the end, he still remained in seclusion, staring at the sky and waiting for death. Why was it that the path ahead was already at an end, no path left to walk? Above the peak, there was no undying existence. Situ Leihong waved his hand and said, "Let's change the topic. This topic is too depressing." Ying Tianzong smiled and said, "You want the 10,000-year-old flame crystal and the 10,000-year-old essence iron to forge the flawless sword, right? How is it going? Let me see." An object that looked like a fire stick appeared in Situ Leihong's mind. He smiled awkwardly and said, "Let's not talk about this. Let's continue. This topic is rather heavy. In that case, I will get down to business. You helped Lu Xiaoyun forge his divine weapon. He still owes you a favor, right? Give him to me. Get him to protect me and successfully advance to Sovereign Martial Emperor." Situ Leihong cursed, "Damn, you are really ruthless. This is what I used to save my life. Rather than talking about this, you might as well talk about the flawless sword." Situ Leihong's swordsmithing skills were unparalleled in the world. Any faction that obtained his swordsmithing skills would benefit them greatly. Who knew how many experts had designs on him? Naturally, Situ Leihong was able to survive until now because he helped others forge swords and received many favors. Of all these, his greatest reliance was the sword sovereign, Lu Xiaoyun. Everyone knew that the divine weapon in the sword sovereign's hand was forged by Situ Leihong. If anyone dared to touch him, they would definitely suffer the revenge of the sword sovereign, Lu Xiaoyun. Ying Zongtian smiled and said, "Little Lei, are you being silly again? After I become a sovereign martial emperor, do I still need Lu Xiaoyun to protect you?" "That's right. After 1,000 years of accumulations, once you advance to sovereign martial emperor, you will not be inferior to Lu Xiaoyun," Situ Leihong said in understanding. "Let's go." "It's settled then." Space fluctuated, and Ying Zongtian vanished from the hall. Everything returned to normal, as if he had never been there. Situ Leihong felt somewhat confused as he said, "Why do I feel like I got cheated?" "He's coming out. Xiao Chun is coming out." The gates of the manor opened. Before the doorman's respectful gaze, a white figure appeared before everyone. A bladesman actually managed to enter the sword-forging manor. Furthermore, Master Situ invited him in from the main gate. Everyone's gazes were filled with one word: jealousy. Diao Jintao stepped forward and blocked Xiao Chen, who had just stepped out of the steps. He glared at Xiao Chen angrily. "Brat, it is time to settle the debt between us." After obtaining the method to save Ao Jiao, Xiao Chen was in a good mood. When facing this unreasonable Diao Jintao, he started to think of other ways to deal with this. Xiao Chen needed to search for the soul-returning grass, the Permethaw flower, and the 3-life stone. In the profound domain, he had already offended the Medicine God Valley's people. If he offended another great Grandmaster-level martial sage, it would be somewhat problematic. Even if Xiao Chen could leave now, it would not be a solution if Xiao Chen found news of him in the future and chased after him. Suddenly, Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and thought of a countermeasure. He said, "Old sir, there is no need to make things difficult for this little friend. As the saying goes, it is better to squash enmity than keep it alive. There is no deep hatred between us. I merely touched your nephew lightly." Ouyang Feng wanted to vomit blood in his heart. "What do you mean by touched lightly? You beat me until I cannot get out of bed for half a year." Diao Jintao said coldly, "Are you joking? Do you think that you can settle this matter with just a few words?" Xiao Chen hugged the lunar shadow saber and smiled calmly. "Not at all. Old sir's cultivation is deep and surging. Your sword chi is like a great river, and your peak sword intent is boundlessly sharp. I wonder how old you are?" Diao Jintao felt slightly pleased. This old man has cultivated for 400 years. How can you compare to me? It will be easy for me to keep you here. Xiao Qin said regretfully, in that case, you only have 100 years left to live. Martial sages could live for up to 500 years. As long as there were no accidents, like a problem with their cultivation, getting severely injured by their enemies, or using a forbidden martial technique, they could live to 500 years old. 500 years was a long time for the people of the mundane world. However, to cultivators, especially strong cultivators, it could only be said in one sentence: there would always be an end. If one could not break through to the blue-robed emperor realm and extend one's lifespan to 1,000 years, no matter how unfathomable one's strength was, one would eventually turn to dust. This was especially so for people like Diao Jintao, who had reached great grandmaster level martial sage but was still a distance away from the blue-robed emperor realm. Their yearning for the mundane world far surpassed that of cultivators of other cultivation realms. Xiao Chen's words immediately exposed Diao Jintao's weakness. His rage flared up in an instant. Old sir, there is no need to get angry. This Xiao is willing to use a longevity fruit to resolve this grudge. Xiao Chen tossed out a piece of shocking news. The words, longevity fruit, immediately excited Diao Jintao. You are saying that you have a longevity fruit? Among the long line of swordsmen, several grandmaster-level martial swordsmen felt restless. Now, when they looked at Xiao Chen, they no longer had the same envious expression as before. Instead, they now had an undisguised murderous intent. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand and tossed a longevity fruit from his universe ring to Diao Jintao. Diao Jintao caught it, his eyes filled with excitement. Ouyang Feng dragged his heavily injured body to the side. He called out a few times, but Xiao Chen did not reply. It really is a longevity fruit. A longevity fruit that can extend one's lifespan by 100 years. Ah! Now, I might have hope of breaking through to the blue-robed emperor realm. Diao Jintao could not help laughing out loud as his emotions surged. Then, he quickly put away the longevity fruit. Uncle, you won't abandon this nephew's grudge just because of a longevity fruit, right? Ouyang Feng could not help feeling anxious when he saw Diao Jintao's overjoyed expression. Diao Jintao put away the longevity fruit and reprimanded with a stern expression, "How can you say that? You repeatedly made things difficult for young Master Xiao, insulting him and attacking him. Xiao Chen only gently touched you. He is so magnanimous, yet you are not grateful. Instead, you talk about a grudge. I feel ashamed for your father." After that, Diao Jintao turned around and performed a cupped fist salute. "Young Master Xiao, my nephew was wrong in today's matter. As his senior, I apologize to you." This time, Ouyang Feng was truly angered to the point of vomiting blood. "Without miraculous medicine, I will not be able to recover in half a year. What do you mean by gently touching me?" Ouyang Feng raged in his heart. He said angrily, "Uncle, can you be more shameless? He just called you an old fogey and called you blind." But right after Ouyang Feng spoke, Diao Jintao slapped him across the face. But Ouyang Feng flew back and rolled down the mountain like a rock. Ouyang Feng had just suppressed his internal injuries. Now, he was in so much pain that he hovered between life and death. His miserable cries filled the entire mountain, a tragic sight to behold. An outstanding youth filled with confidence came here to seek a fate with swords. In the end, he ended up in such a state, getting slapped away by his own uncle. This made one sigh. Diao Jintao felt depressed. This Ouyang Feng was really not on the right path. Even now, he still could not see the situation clearly. I gave Ouyang Feng a way out of this embarrassing situation, yet he ended up blaming me. One longevity fruit was 100 years of lifespan. 200 years of lifespan. So what if he was called an old blind man? No matter how harsh the insult was, he would still accept it. Furthermore, what Xiao Chen said was right. There was no deep hatred. It was better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Diao Jintao turned around and revealed a smile like the spring breeze to Shao Chen. Young Master Shao, it's time to go. This old man will prepare a generous gift for your king conferral ceremony half a year from now. If you are fortunate enough to break through to the blue-robed emperor realm, I will definitely thank you again. Damn! How shameless! Shameless. Truly shameless. He is a great Grandmaster level swordsman. How can he change his mind at a whim, falling out with him at a whim? The group of young swordsmen immediately started cursing, feeling that Ouyang Feng was not worthy of this. However, the group of old Grandmaster-level martial sages had already surrounded Shao Chen. All of them had smiles on their faces as they continuously praised Shao Chen. Young Master Shao is truly a talented person with an extraordinary air. I have been unhappy with that Ouyang Feng for a long time now. He attacked young Master Shao without distinguishing right from wrong. He is a scum and should be taught a ruthless lesson. Do you still have any longevity fruits? Can you give this old man one? The white-robed king's magnanimity is indeed worth learning by the younger generation. It would be great if the younger generation could all be like the white-robed king. The Blue Dragon King truly lives up to his reputation as the Blue Dragon King. He truly lives up to being someone that Master Situ personally summoned. All sorts of praises rained down on Shao Chen like cannon fire, toppling mountains and overturning seas. When these old men saw Shao Chen casually give a longevity fruit to Diao Jintao, their eyes turned bloodshot with anxiety. They all spoke up, begging Shao Chen to give them another longevity fruit. Shao Chen found it funny. These people's earlier words were still ringing in his ears. Now that he saw their performance, it was a great mockery. Chapter 957. However, everything was within expectations. This was the effect that Shao Chen wanted. He smiled faintly and suppressed the voices of the crowd. Old sirs, please don't get agitated. This Shao no longer has any longevity fruits on me. Even if you kill me, you will not be able to get one. Once those words were spoken, one could clearly see the disappointment on the faces of the many old men. Shao Chen paused for a while before continuing. Just because I do not have any longevity fruits on me does not mean that I do not have any more. Truth be told, I obtained 10 longevity fruits by chance in an immortal sect remnant in the primal chaos domain's heavenly ruin wasteland. Aside from the one that I gave to old Mr. Diao, I handed the remaining 9 to the Flourishing Heaven Pavilion. Half a month from now, the Flourishing Heaven Pavilion will hold a small Grandmaster-level auction to auction off these longevity fruits. There are still 9 left. The old men surrounding Shao Chen immediately rekindled their hope. Several of the old men looked at Shao Chen with malicious intent. They did not believe him and wanted to kill him to snatch his treasures. Shao Chen saw all this. His heart was as clear as a mirror. He smiled faintly and said, I hope that everyone will attend the Flourishing Heaven Pavilion's auction half a month from now. I once said that great Grandmaster-level experts cannot stop me. I was not speaking carelessly. If you want to keep this Shao Chen here, don't overthink it. The freedom wings on Shao Chen's back unfurled. He had already prepared the magic skill, so close yet worlds apart. Instantly excited, he took a step forward and crossed hundreds of kilometers. He really disappeared. I can't sense his aura anymore. Shao Chen was indeed not bragging. Great Grandmaster-level martial sages cannot stop him. Longevity fruit. Unexpectedly, this old man managed to run into such a natural treasure in his lifetime. I have to obtain it at all cost. It looks like I can only sell the divine materials for forging weapons. Otherwise, I will not be able to buy longevity fruit. Several old men left Sword Forging Peak, preparing for the longevity fruit auction that would take place half a month later. Hundreds of kilometers away, Shao Chen landed on a small mountain peak. He revealed a satisfied smile on his face. He had 20 longevity fruits in his hands. He took out one longevity fruit to resolve his grudge and advertise it at the same time. He could definitely afford it. After all, it was a trade without any cost. Given Sword Forging Peak's position in the profound domain, the news of the longevity fruit appearing would spread throughout the entire profound domain in less than 3 days. At that time, the many older generation Grandmaster-level martial sages would all take action. None of the older generation great Grandmaster-level martial sages would care about their lifespans. 9 longevity fruits would definitely fetch a good price. He might not even have to search for the 3 lifestone, soul-returning grass, and Permetha flower. He could use the black astral coins to purchase them. It was a small move, killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Resurrection flower, equinox grass, 3 lives stone. Xiao Chen had never heard of any of the 3 items. However, based on their names, he vaguely felt that they might be in the ghost domain or that he might have to make a trip to the 9 hells purgatory. As for the specifics, Xiao Chen would have to ask Ying Qiong. He could also ask about the matter of the saber school ranking. Calculating the time, Kim Tae-ho and Lord Jiu should have already arrived at the Ying clan's headquarters in the profound domain, Qin City. Xiao Chen thought for a while and gave up on going to Qin City. Right now, his identity was somewhat sensitive. It would be better to send someone to inform Ying Qiong. The profound domain was much larger than the primal chaos domain. On the surface, it looked much calmer. At the very least, there would not be any loose cultivators brazenly walking the street. However, the factions here were much more complicated and vast than in the primal chaos domain. The profound domain was independent of the 5 domains. There were many noble clans of the ghost race, corpse race, human race, and fiend race. They were all like the sovereign noble clans of the human race. They did not submit to the jurisdiction of the major factions of their own domain, so they left and came to this profound domain to establish themselves. After tens of thousands of years of development, this place already had its own unique background, becoming the center of the entire Kunlun realm. Not only were there many local factions, but the Bushan Palace, the Corpse God Palace, the Deity Domain, and the Fiend Race had also extended their influence into this place, making it even more complicated. There were countless experts, including several sovereign martial emperors. However, there were only 2 publicly recognized as the strongest: the Saber Sovereign Wu Xiaotian and the Sword Sovereign Lu Xiaoyun. There were many Saber Sovereigns in this world, such as the Northern Sea Saber Sovereign, the Ice Saber Sovereign, and the Primal Chaos Saber Sovereign. However, only Wu Xiaotian dared to call himself the Saber Sovereign without any prefixes. The Sword Sovereign Lu Xiaoyun was the same. The 2 of them were publicly recognized as the strongest in the Kunlun realm when it came to using the saber and the sword. This Lu Xiaoyun was not the Lu Xiaoyun that Xiao Qin met in the Sky Dome realm. They had different names, and the difference in strength was like heaven and earth. Xiao Qin had been to the profound domain a few times. His understanding of the profound domain was limited to the bits of information he had obtained. Now that he was on a tall mountain, he looked around. He did not know where he was or which faction governed this place. Xiao Qin chose the nearest city and put away the Freedom Wings. Then, he started to make his way. After 4 hours, he arrived at a towering city gate. Heavenly Cauldron City. There were 3 ancient and vast words written on the city gate. The strokes were like dragons and snakes, looking very imposing. Xiao Qin muttered them aloud. Heavenly Cauldron City was about the same size as Qin City, which Xiao Qin had been to before. It was second only to the Sky City in the center of the profound domain, Leisure Feather City. After entering the city gate, Xiao Qin discovered that there were an absurd number of bladesmen in the city. He even vaguely felt like he was in Saber City at the foot of the Sky Dome Realm's Heavenly Saber Pavilion. As a bladesman, Xiao Qin did not find this unsuitable. On the contrary, he was already used to this feeling. When Xiao Qin entered the largest inn in the city, He was told that all the private rooms and VIP rooms were taken. All the independent courtyards were sold out long ago, leaving only a few of the lowest quality guest rooms. Excuse me, but the city lord's young master recently organized a tea party. Meeting friends over tea and discussing the Tao with the saber. He invited all the famous bladesmen in the world, resulting in overcrowding. Only the lower rooms are left. At the table, Xiao Qin casually drank wine. Then, he took a sip and put down his wine cup. That's fine. Lower rooms it is. What's wrong? Does the city lord have a great background? He is just a young master, and he dares to invite all the bladesmen in the world? The waiter smiled and said, Of course. This city lord is a famous bladesman in the Tianwu domain. He is already a blue-robed emperor. Furthermore, Heavenly Cauldron City is one of the holy lands for bladesmen in the profound domain. Do you think he has a great background? However, this is nothing. At the very least, in the profound domain, even Emperor Wu would not dare to say that he can do as he pleases. The truly incredible one is the young city lord, Bai Lang. His talent is outstanding. The Saber Sovereign took a liking to him and accepted him as his final disciple. Do you think he is qualified to invite all the bladesmen in the world? This tea party has been passed down for a long time. It is as famous as the Sword Dao Tea Party held by the Sword Sovereign's inheritors and is widely sought after. The waiter sounded very pleased with himself. Clearly, as a local, he felt somewhat dissatisfied with Xiao Chen's question. Xiao Chen smiled and did not refute the waiter. However, he felt somewhat depressed in his heart. He invited all the famous bladesmen in the world, but why did he not receive an invitation? However, this resentment passed in a flash. After Xiao Chen drank the wine, he tossed it to the back of his mind. Go and help me prepare a lower room. After that, I still have something to do and need you to run errands for me. You should know about the faction that circulates letters in the city, right? The waiter chuckled and said, Preparing a room is part of my job. This little one definitely knows where to circulate letters. However, this is not part of my job. That, Xiao Chen tossed out a black astral coin and asked, Is that enough? In the primal chaos domain, Xiao Chen had killed many martial sages. Although Xiao Chen had left the spatial rings with Lord Jiu, he had taken the astral coins and divine materials in them for himself. The items that Lord Jiu had gone to the Ying clan to deal with were the black goods in the spatial rings. In terms of total value, they were much higher than the astral coins that Xiao Chen had taken. Xiao Chen now had more than 2 million black astral coins, a huge sum. Tossing out one black astral coin was more than enough. The waiter happily received the black astral coin and repeatedly said, Good. Then, he quickly went to prepare a room for Xiao Chen. In merely 3 days after receiving the letter, Ying Qiong arrived at the appointed time. Xiao Chen casually looked around and discovered 2 Grandmaster-level martial sages hidden in the surroundings. Having learned his lesson, Ying Qiong was much more cautious than before. Even Grandmaster-level martial sages appeared. This showed that the power struggle among the Ying clan's younger generation had reached a peak. Young Master Xiao, you really do not ask for this little girl's help. You can't even bear to meet me. Ying Qiong sat down and looked at Xiao Chen with a resentful look. Xiao Chen smiled and said, Don't give me that. If you were a little girl, then there would be no women in the world. Ying Qiong's expression turned serious as she scolded. You fellow, your mouth is still as venomous as before. That auction was something you decided to hold on your own, right? Are you not afraid that I will fall out with you and prevent you from continuing the auction? Xiao Chen put down his wine cup and said with some pity, In that case, never mind. I was just preparing to give you 3 longevity fruits as a thank you gift after the auction. It looks like you do not care for them. Ying Qiong's mouth gaped open slightly as she asked in a low voice, You fellow, just how many longevity fruits do you have? Don't tell me you even snatched a longevity tree? You overestimate me. With my strength, how could I capture a longevity tree? However, I do have quite a few longevity fruit. Since you agreed to hold the auction, I will definitely give you the 3 longevity fruits as promised. Qiong revealed a suspicious expression. Are you that kind? Why do I feel that something is wrong? Xiao Chen said softly, don't think too badly of me. I do not wish for the Ying clan to end up in the hands of someone I am not familiar with. In the future, you will be in charge of the Ying clan. It will be much easier for me to handle some matters. The 3 longevity fruits will allow you to recruit 3 experts. That should be of some help to you. Qiong smiled craftily and said, how come I heard that someone took away the king-grade secret treasures of the Yen clan, Jiang clan, and Lin clan scions? You are afraid of offending the Ying clan, offending the 4 sovereign noble clans of the human race, right? Xiao Chen smiled embarrassedly and said, whatever you say. If you are willing to hold the auction, then let's settle it. I can hand the longevity fruits to you now. How can I reject benefits that are delivered to my doorstep? That's right, I already helped your 2 friends with their matters. However, I did not earn a single cent. That fatso is not doing business. What a waste of his eloquence. Xiao Chen smiled and casually handed the box containing the longevity fruits to Qiong. Qiong checked the box for a while. Then, her eyes turned into crescent moons, and she smiled like a flower. What else is there? Just say it all at once. I don't believe that you will give me something for free. Chapter 958. 3 Life Stone, Soul Returning Grass, and Permetha Flower. Help me ask around for these 3 things. If you can buy them directly, no matter the price, I will buy them. If you cannot buy them directly, then tell me where I can find them. Qiong frowned slightly and asked, what are those things? I have been in the Flourishing Heaven Pavilion for so long, but I have never heard of them before. Xiao Chen's heart sank. To think that even Qiong had not heard of them. It looked like these 3 things would not be easy to find. However, don't worry. The Heavenly Mystery Pavilion is in charge of intelligence. I should be able to find them. I will let you know after I ask around, Qiong consoled. Xiao Chen relaxed slightly. He said, one last question. How much do you know about the Saber School ranking? Tell me in detail. Qiong gave Xiao Chen a strange look and asked, didn't you come to Heavenly Cauldron City to participate in the tea party? How come you don't even know this? The series of questions made Xiao Chen feel somewhat embarrassed. I got lost. I just casually chose Heavenly Cauldron City. As for the tea party, I did not receive an invitation at all. Qiong burst out laughing. He could not help laughing at Xiao Chen's explanation. To think that Xiao Chen chose Heavenly Cauldron City because he got lost. After the explanation, Xiao Chen understood what the Saber School ranking was about. It was about the same as what Situ Leihong had said. However, it was more detailed. The Saber School ranking and the Sword School ranking were extremely famous in the profound domain. The Saber School ranking only recorded 50 people. Those who could make it onto the Saber School ranking were all experts with Grandmaster-level combat prowess. Since the Saber School ranking did not reject older generation cultivators from participating, it was extremely valuable. Over the years, the young bladesmen who could make it onto the Saber School ranking would become famous everywhere, praised by everyone. In other words, this Saber School ranking represented the strongest bladesmen under the blue-robed emperor. This was not an exaggeration at all. The Saber School ranking and the Sword School ranking changed every 10 years. Now it was almost 10 years. As for the tea party, both clans held it. The inheritors of the Saber Sovereign and the Sword Sovereign would host it. Firstly, it was to strengthen their reputation and discuss the Tao while drinking tea. Secondly, it was to see who among the younger generation had the potential to make it into the top 10 of the Saber School ranking. Over the years, there had been many youths who could make it onto the Saber School ranking. They had killed their way out of a group of older generation bladesmen and made a name for themselves. However, there were very few youths in the top 10. It could be said that there were none, unless the participating bladesmen could not gather 10 great Grandmaster-level martial sages. Those who occupied the top 10 were all great Grandmaster-level existences. However, the more difficult it was, the more impossible it was. If a member of the younger generation could enter the top 10, that would be a testament to their strength. Chun and Si sage and a sage martial and spirit sage would also master Woodkin world. After Xiao Chun heard that, his expression could not help but turn grave. It turned out that the top 10 were so difficult to obtain. One had to challenge a great Grandmaster-level martial sage. No wonder when Sidu Leihong heard Xiao Chun agree, he revealed a mocking expression. Opponents at the level of great Grandmaster-level martial sage were indeed not easy to deal with. At the very least, Xiao Chen's chances of victory were slim. What's wrong? It looks like you want to make it into the top 10? Ing Qiong smiled and said, hee, that is not easy. In the past few saber school rankings, no one from the younger generation managed to make it into the top 10. However, it might be possible this time. The Saber Sovereign's mysterious disciple, Wenziren, is very promising. Wenziren? That's right. One of the main reasons why this tea party is so popular is that Bai Lang invited this mysterious bladesman. Of course, this is just hearsay. Whether this person will come or not is still a mystery. Xiao Chun poured himself another cup of wine and smiled. Whether he comes or not has nothing to do with me. I do not have an invitation, so I cannot go to this tea party. Actually, I can help you get an invitation. However, you have to agree to one of my requests. Xiao Chun raised his eyebrows. Then, he thought of something and was about to agree. However, when he thought about how strange this girl was, he did not know what request she would make. Xiao Chun swallowed the words that were at the tip of his tongue. There's no need. Just help me complete the request. I'll wait for your news. Then, Xiao Chun put down the wine cup and turned to leave. Ing Qiong clenched his teeth and said, Bastard! Will it kill you to ask someone seriously? While it was unfortunate that Xiao Chun could not participate in the tea party, it was not to the point where he had to participate. After returning to his room, Xiao Chun had some free time. So, he took out the last Heavenly Soul Pearl. This was the highest-ranked Heavenly Soul Pearl he had. Originally, Xiao Chun had prepared to consume it long ago. However, he had not been able to do so. Now that he was free, he forgot about it. Coincidentally, he still needed some time to wait for Ing Qiong's news. Consuming this pearl to strengthen himself was just right. Xiao Chun sat down cross-legged and overlapped his hands. The Heavenly Soul Pearl floated above his palm. Then, he silently circulated the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation, slowly consuming the energy contained in it. The light of the white jade Heaven Soul Pearl dimmed, but the dermic powers in the Sea of Consciousness were boiling like a volcano. They surged and spread across the entire Sea of Consciousness at a visible speed. Xiao Chen's heart skipped a beat. The growth of the magic power in his Sea of Consciousness was beyond his expectations. If it continued to grow, his Sea of Consciousness would soon be filled with magic power. Due to the limitation of the realm, one's magic power would not be able to grow. He was not an orthodox immortal cultivator, but the dragon infant in his body had formed. Xiao Chen estimated that his immortal cultivator level had reached the nascent soul realm. There were still the nascent soul, soul formation, Mahayana, void refinement, Mahayana, and tribulation crossing. In reality, there were only 4 realms: nascent soul, soul transformation, void refinement, and great realization. The immortal epoch no longer existed. This world no longer had tribulations to undergo, so it was impossible for an immortal lord to appear. Immortal monarchs were the legendary immortals. They had the same lifespan as the heavens. Any random immortal monarch would have the strength of the Thunder King. Most importantly, they would be able to achieve immortality, escape from the Six Paths reincarnation, and live forever. Just think about the 3,000 immortal monarchs of the immortal epoch. That was a legendary and glorious age. Above immortal monarchs were immortal ancestors and immortal kings. No one in the martial epoch could match that level of strength. Perhaps only the legendary martial god could make people associate him with the martial god. Perhaps he could compare. However, it was pointless to say anything now. The heavenly Tao had changed, and it was already the martial epoch. Even if one had a fortuitous encounter and great luck, walking the path of immortal cultivation in this age, one would not be able to become an immortal. If one could successfully climb to the void refinement realm, that would be the limit. There would be no exceptions. When Shao Chun finished absorbing the jade-white heavenly soul pearl, his sea of consciousness was already completely filled. His magic energy reached the limit, reaching the bottleneck of the nascent soul realm. Shao Chun opened his eyes and felt the abundant magic energy. On one hand, he felt incredibly joyful. On the other hand, he felt somewhat vexed. How to reach the nascent soul realm became a difficult problem for Shao Chun. With a thought, the chubby little blue dragon in his dantian flew out. When the blue dragon landed on Shao Chun's palm, it was like a clone. Shao Chun could control this little dragon's every move. The blue dragon Yuanying had its own senses. It could sense everything it saw and felt. This characteristic was no different from a Yuanying's. However, if one were to say that this blue dragon was Shao Chun's Yuanying, the immortal cultivators of the Penglai Sea would all laugh themselves to death. Shao Chun simply did not know how to make this little fellow undergo a metamorphosis and advance to the nascent soul realm. After withdrawing the Yuanying into his body, Shao Chun stopped thinking about this problem. Right now, the magic energy in his sea of consciousness was more than enough for him to use. When necessary, he could make up for the lack of law energy. Naturally, he would have an additional trump card compared to others. If he ran into a cultivator with a higher cultivation, he would not have to fear a battle of attrition. 3 days later, the waiter brought an envelope to Shao Chun in. The envelope contained information from Ying Qiong. After Shao Chun read it, his expression turned extremely grave. It was as he had guessed. The 3 lifestone, the soul-returning grass, and the Permetha flower were indeed in the ghost race's 9 layers of purgatory. These 3 items would not be sold on the market. The envelope did mention where these 3 items might be. However, Ying Qiong strongly advised Shao Chun not to go. Shao Chun put away the envelope and looked at the lunar shadow saber in his hand in a daze. Even though he knew that even the ghost race did not dare to go to the 9 layers of purgatory, how could he not go? There was also an invitation hidden in the envelope. When Shao Chun opened it, it was the invitation to the Saber Dao Tea Party. Shao Chun could not help laughing hoarsely. This woman still remembers how good I was to her. Getting into the top 10 of the Saber School ranking was Situ Leihong's condition for helping. Naturally, Shao Chun wanted to go to the Saber Dao Tea Party if he could. He wanted to understand the strength of his opponents in the same generation and obtain more information. This would be helpful for him to get into the top 10. The location of the tea party was the Heavenly Cauldron Plaza in Heavenly Cauldron City. It occupied a vast area and was very grand. Normally, many bladesmen gathered there, making it an extraordinarily bustling place. Only the young city lord, Bai Lang, would be able to reserve the entire Heavenly Cauldron Plaza for a tea party. Just as Shao Chun left the inn while holding the invitation, someone called out to him. When he turned his head to look, he saw that it was someone familiar from the Tianwu domain. This person was Feng Xingxing, the top bladesman of the younger generation in the 18 southern provinces of the Tianwu domain. Although Shao Chun had suppressed this title long ago, Feng Xingxing was now famous. However, now that Shao Chun had become famous, he was a famous bladesman of the Tianwu domain. It was not strange to meet him here. Feng Xingxing walked over quickly and laughed loudly. I just knew that brother Shao would come. Others say that you are not a bladesman. You will definitely come to prove yourself. Feng Xingxing's words came out of nowhere. When Xiao Chen heard this, he found it strange. He asked doubtfully, "Brother Feng, what do you mean by that? Why do I have to prove myself?" This question startled Feng Xingxing. Could it be that Brother Xiao Chen did not hear what the Heavenly Cauldron City's young city lord said? What did he say? Someone once asked him if he would invite Brother Xiao to the tea party. He said that he would not. He said that you are famous, but you no longer use the saber. The white-robed bladesman is just an empty title. If you do not even have a saber, how can you be called a bladesman? Since you are not a bladesman, naturally, he would not invite you. This revelation stunned Xiao Chen. It turned out that there was such a reason why he did not receive an invitation. It looked like Ying Qiong had put in a lot of effort to help him obtain an invitation. Bai Lang, I should get to know this person. He might be interesting. When Xiao Chen heard this, he did not get angry. Instead, he felt some anticipation for this tea party. Chapter 959. Brother Xiao, are you all right? Bai Lang is a straightforward person. As a disciple of the Saber Sovereign, it is unavoidable for him to be somewhat arrogant. Seeing Xiao Chen remain silent, Feng Xingxing asked somewhat nervously. It looked like this was indeed his first time hearing this. He feared that Xiao Chen would get angry and cause a ruckus at the tea party. Xiao Chen took out the invitation and smiled. This is indeed my first time hearing this. However, I already have an invitation. If you do not mind, I will go with Brother Feng. When Feng Xingxing saw the situation, he heaved a sigh of relief. Naturally, I do not mind. It is a blessing to attend this tea party with Brother Xiao. Many cultivators dressed as bladesmen headed for the Heavenly Cauldron Plaza in the middle of the city. At this moment, everyone in the entire Heavenly Cauldron City was heading in the same direction. The influence of the tea party was clear with just one glance. The vast Heavenly Cauldron Plaza was decorated with flowers that competed with each other in beauty. As the crowd moved, the cultivators of the city lord's residence personally led the way and received the guests. Everything was very orderly without any chaos. There were many pavilions in the plaza, with fake mountains and fountains. Occasionally, 2 or 3 friends would gather together, either sitting on the ground or gathering in the pavilions. They would drink tea and discuss the Tao, exchanging their experiences. The treasured sabers they carried were all placed at the side. There were also merchants who set up stalls, selling items related to the saber. There were saber-type spirit weapons, secret manuals, ores, and many more. The entire place was extraordinarily bustling, filled with endless laughter. Xiao Chen could not help but feel some admiration for this Bai Lang. It was not easy to organize such a grand event and arrange everything in such an orderly manner. Brother Xiao, this is the periphery of the Heavenly Cauldron Plaza. It looks very lively, but there are no experts. The true tea party will be held in the center of the plaza. Without an invitation, you will not be able to enter. As Feng Xingxing spoke, he casually called over a maidservant and handed the invitation to her. Xiao Chen followed suit and handed his invitation to the maidservant. The pretty maidservant checked the invitation and smiled happily. Honored guests, please come with me. In the periphery, they took many turns and passed through many heavily guarded checkpoints. After carefully checking the invitations several times, the two of them successfully entered the center of the square. 18 stone pillars with ancient bladesmen carved on them stood on a tall platform in the spacious area. They pierced into the clouds, separated by 100 meters, forming a crescent moon. Rumor had it that these 18 stone pillars were not carved by later generations. Instead, they were a mysterious phenomenon that appeared after the 18 Saber Sovereigns advanced to Martial Emperor, similar to the Thunder King Valley in the Sky Dome realm. An elegant wooden table was placed on the high platform. The guests who had arrived earlier had already taken their seat. There were not many people who came, only about 30 or 40. However, all of them were outstanding bladesmen of the younger generation. Their saber intents had all reached an extremely high level. Their gazes clashed, and their saber intents seemed solid. It was like they could hear the crisp sound of weapons clashing in the air. Of the 18 stone pillars, a long wooden table was placed under the stone pillar in the middle. There was only one person seated there. This person wore luxurious embroidered clothes with a jade belt inlaid with pearls, jade, and gemstones. His handsome face exuded an air of nobility. This person should be the heavenly Cauldron City's young city lord, Bai Lang. However, the seat beside Bai Lang was empty. That mysterious bladesman, Ziren, did not appear. After walking up 100 steps, Xiao Qin and Feng Xingxing ascended the high platform at the same time. Welcome, Full Moon Pavilion's Feng Xingxing and the Haotian Sect's Xiao Qin, to the tea party. A servant below the high platform read out the names on the invitation cards, reading out Xiao Qin's and Feng Xingxing's identities. This caused a significant commotion in the surroundings. Bai Lang raised his eyebrows and sized up Xiao Qin. However, he immediately left. A pretty and obedient maidservant stepped forward and led Xiao Qin and Feng Xingxing to a wooden table. Then, she served them some aged spirit fruits, exquisite desserts, and superior tea. Xiao Qin picked up the teacup and took a sip. Then, he revealed a satisfied expression. Although Xiao Qin did not know much about tea, he could tell that the tea leaves were very valuable from the fragrance that spread in his mouth and the cooling qi that spread throughout his body after the tea entered his body. Then, he looked at the spirit fruits on the table. This Xiao Qin was an expert in this field. With a cursory glance, he could tell that the spirit fruits were at least 3,000 years old. They were truly extravagant. Strange, how strange. Young city lord, didn't you say that a certain person is a bladesman in name but not a bladesman in reality? Why is he here today at this once-in-a-decade bladesman event? The moment Xiao Qin sat down, a bold and meddlesome person immediately started a conversation. This person's complexion was sickly pale, and his voice had a sinister tone to it. With one look, it was clear that he was a member of the ghost race. Feng Xingxing frowned and explained, "This person is called Jiang Qingzi. He is one of the few ghost race cultivators who practice the saber. He specializes in the death saber Dao and is extremely incredible. He has already formed a vague form of a saber soul, and his saber intent is very exquisite." Xiao Qin glanced around. The bladesmen here had at least reached great perfection in their saber intents. There were many who had comprehended 90% comprehended saber intent. However, not many had formed a vague form of a saber soul. Feng Xingxing, who was beside Xiao Qin, was one. The other was this Jiang Qingzi. Bai Lang, who was on the platform, was like Xiao Qin, hiding his saber intents very well. Others would not be able to detect their saber intent. Bai Lang said indifferently, "I gave him an invitation as a favor to a friend. My words remain the same. Without a saber in hand, no matter how famous a bladesman is, he is just an empty shell. He cannot be considered a bladesman." Xiao Qin's lips curled up, and he revealed a playful smile. These words were really direct, displaying a noble, cold, and aloof attitude. Xiao Qin held back Feng Xingxing, who was about to speak up for him. Then, he smiled and did not argue. He was only here to see who would be his opponent in the saber school ranking 4 months from now. If the other party did not like him, there was no need for him to waste any effort arguing. When Jiang Qingzi heard this, he did not say anything more. He only looked at Xiao Qin with a hostile expression. He did not know how Xiao Qin had offended this ghost race bladesman. Bai Lang raised his cup to Feng Xingxing and said, "Brother Feng became famous at a young age. In the early days, you were known as the top bladesman of the southern region of the Tianwu domain's younger generation. Since you are willing to do me the honor of coming here today, I will use tea in place of wine to toast you." "Brother Bai, you are too polite," Feng Xingxing said quickly. Bai Lang continued, earlier, Brother Jiang shared some of his experiences in cultivating the Death Saber Dao with everyone. Since Brother Feng is here, why don't you explain the Saber Dao that you practice to everyone? The first part of the tea party was to discuss the Dao over tea, to exchange experiences and make progress together. Naturally, Feng Xingxing would not reject. He put down his teacup and started to talk about the wind saber Dao that he cultivated. There are berserk winds, gentle winds, warm winds, and bone-chilling winds. Every kind of wind has many variations. One can focus on one point, taking only one Dao. If one cultivates it to the peak, one will be able to look down on the world. If one is talented, one can incorporate all the variations into one's saber Dao. When Feng Xingxing spoke about his wind saber Dao, he was not stingy. He shared some of his experiences, speaking eloquently and eloquently. At the same time, he shared his doubts and confusion, seeking answers. As Feng Xingxing spoke about the saber Dao, the atmosphere was good. Occasionally, someone would ask a question. Some even had a flash of inspiration, giving a new understanding. Bai Lang listened very seriously. He also shared some of the questions that Feng Xingxing raised. With such an atmosphere, Xiao Chen could not help but immerse himself in it, listening attentively. Good. After Feng Xingxing finished speaking, Bai Lang, who was seated in the middle, took the lead and clapped. The others followed suit. It had to be said that Feng Xingxing's wind saber Dao was extremely exquisite. It made everyone's eyes light up, giving them many comprehensions. Following that, a few more people discussed the saber Dao that they practiced. Although they were not as brilliant as Feng Xingxing's, they were still unique and had their own highlight. The other bladesmen did not mock them. Instead, they offered their own understanding, complementing each other's saber Dao. As they spoke, the melodious hum of sabers rang out in the surroundings, sounding like zither music, very pleasant to the ears. Saber winds blew everywhere, and a sharp saber intent spread throughout the tall platform. This group of people were all outstanding young talent. As they chatted, they could not hold back their saber intent, which resulted in such a miraculous scene. The endless clanging of sabers sounded like people fighting in the air, materializing the saber Dao that the bladesmen discussed. The ancient bladesmen carved on the 18 towering stone pillars seemed to be listening as well. Their eyes looked lively as if they came to life. After that, several more people came. Among them, there were two incredible people who also comprehended a vague form of saber soul. These two people were Lin Yen and Duguju. They were the disciples of the Inferno Saber Sovereign and the Lightning Saber Sovereign, both famous. The Inferno Saber Sovereign and the Lightning Saber Sovereign were both sovereign martial emperors. Their titles also contained the words, Saber Sovereign. However, because of Wu Xiaotian, they did not dare to address themselves as Saber Sovereign. The only person in the world who dared to call himself a Saber Sovereign was Wu Xiaotian. He was unique, the strongest peak expert of the Saber Dao. Under Bai Lang's invitation, the two started to talk about the saber. They also talked about the saber techniques that they practiced. Everyone could clearly feel that the two's comprehension of the saber Dao was higher than Feng Xingxing's. When the two talked about the saber, lightning and flames even appeared. A vast saber intent spread out, suppressing the saber intents of the other outstanding youths present. This inspired admiration in everyone's hearts. After the two finished speaking, everyone clapped at the same time. The saber intents scattered in the air formed a stirring tune that reverberated endlessly, lingering for a long time. This tune spread to the periphery of the heavenly cauldron plaza. Several bladesmen who heard of it could not help turning their heads to look up, yearning in their hearts. Young City Lord, most of the people here have already spoken. Why don't you speak as well? A disciple of a Saber Sovereign will definitely live up to his reputation. Let us broaden our horizons, someone suggested with a smile. Bai Lang smiled faintly and put down his teacup. His actions were elegant as he said softly, It is not about broadening our horizons. Like everyone else, this Bai will only speak about some of his own comprehensions. Upon hearing that Bai Lang was about to speak, everyone immediately settled down and prepared to listen carefully. The Saber Sovereign was very famous. Since Bai Lang was a disciple of the Saber Sovereign, he would definitely be extraordinary. Chapter 960. Xiao Chen put down his teacup and listened attentively. After half a day of observation, Xiao Chen understood that this person's heart was higher than the sky. However, he was not a person who only knew how to show off. The saber technique that this Bai cultivates is called the profound river wave chop. The essence of it is the word wave. As the saying goes, a surging wave can break through the sky. This is the limit of the wave's might. It can even break through the sky. When people practice this kind of saber technique, this is the goal. I once went to the chaotic demonic sea in the north and watched the tides rise and fall. I did not move for 3 years and saw the largest wave. When it surged, it brought a sense of shock that I would never forget. It was like a world rose before me, and nothing could resist this power. Watching the tides rise and fall, not moving for 3 years. When the crowd heard this, they could not help feeling astonished. Bai Lang's patience was truly admirable. Bai Lang did not stop speaking. As he continued, the rumbling of the waves resounded behind him. He had observed all sorts of wondrous scenes of the waves for the past 3 years. As he spoke, it was as if a real scene had been developed, and it caused others to feel a surging and boundless intent. The moment he spoke, everyone's heart surged. However, after the raging waves subsided, Bai Lang said softly, "However, after sitting here for 3 years, I realized that no matter how big the waves are, they are only on the surface and not in reality. In terms of the might of the waves, 1 drop of profound water from the Immortal epoch's profound river weighed 5 tons. 1 wave could shatter a towering mountain. However, this is not the essence of the wave." The moment Bai Lang spoke, the various scenes of the profound river behind him, the surging waves, all stopped and vanished. The crowd listened, entranced. No one said anything as they waited for Bai Lang to continue. The essence of the waves lies in being unfettered, free, unfettered. The most compact thing in the world is water. As long as there are depressions, the water will merge again. Why do waves appear? It is because of freedom. This water is different from others, unwilling to be bound. You can only understand them. As Bai Lang spoke, the illusory scene that had stopped behind him reappeared in an even more intense manner. Rumbling sounds could be heard. The entire heavenly cauldron plaza could hear it clearly, as if the waves were right beside one's ears. But when you carefully pursue it, it is like the wind, untraceable, unrestrained, and free like the wind. There was a great Tao within the great Tao. So that was how it was. Many people revealed looks of realization. Boom, boom, boom. As Bai Lang spoke, 3 of the 18 stone pillars carved with ancient saber sovereigns began to tremble. It lit up with a bright white brilliance. The image of the ancient saber sovereign sat cross-legged at the top of the stone pillar, as though he was listening. 3 vast saber intents soared into the sky, scattering the clouds for 50 kilometers around. Bai Lang's saber Tao actually startled the remnant thoughts that the ancient sages left in the world. Everyone revealed shocked expressions. When he finished his speech, the image of the ancient saber sovereign on top of the stone pillar slowly dissipated, disappearing without a trace. Pa pa pa. The sound of clapping rang out endlessly. Everyone stood up and expressed their heartfelt admiration for Bai Lang's eloquence. Bai Lang smiled faintly and picked up his teacup. "It's just one person's opinion. I've made a fool of myself. Brother Bai is too humble." Even the ancient sages were moved and listened attentively. How could we dare to laugh? Indeed, I did not dare to interrupt Brother Bai's speech at all. After I heard it, I felt enlightened. The world before me suddenly became clear. This must be the so-called Great Tao within the Great Tao. This time, the Saber School ranking will be revisited. Brother Bai might be able to make it into the top 10 and leave your name in history. As they drank, everyone praised Bai Lang's speech. Bai Lang took the lead and sat down. Then, he smiled and said, "This is really praising me too much. I believe that in another 10 years, these great Grandmaster-level martial sages will not be a match for me. However, my chances of defeating them now are slim. The one with true hope is my senior brother Wenziren. Unfortunately, he has something to do and cannot come." "That is indeed unfortunate. Wenziren is without a doubt the strongest bladesman in our profound domain. However, his whereabouts are unknown. It is too difficult to meet him." At this moment, Jiang Qingzi glanced at Xiao Chen, who had been silent all this while. He smiled mockingly and said, "Wenziren is not here. However, don't forget that we still have an even more famous person here. He is someone who even dares to compete with Diwa." Only now did everyone react. It turned out that Xiao Chen was still here. If not for Jiang Qingzi's reminder, they would have forgotten about him. "Brother Xiao, say a few words as well. The name of the white-robed bladesman has spread everywhere. We have long heard of it," someone encouraged. Jiang Qingzi said indifferently, "He does not even have his saber anymore. What are you asking him to say? Ha! Are you going to talk about fist and leg techniques?" Xiao Chen glanced at Jiang Qingzi. He did not know what was wrong with this fellow. Why was he always targeting him? Gently putting down the teacup in his hand, Xiao Chen said calmly, "I do indeed want to say something. Recently, I have run into some bottlenecks in my comprehension of the Saber Tao. Since everyone is here, perhaps you can help me resolve my doubts. If you do not mind, this Xiao Chen can speak about it." Everyone immediately looked at Bai Lang. If he did not speak, Xiao Chen could not continue either. Bai Lang picked up his teacup and looked at Xiao Chen. "Since you are here, you might as well speak about it. After all, you were once a bladesman." Bai Lang's tone and attitude were as noble and elegant as before. He had a problem with Xiao Chen, a bladesman who only looked impressive. Xiao Chen smiled and did not mind. He was truly affected by the atmosphere of the tea party. A group of bladesmen discussed the Tao over tea, abandoning their sectarian differences. They shared their comprehensions without holding anything back, discussing and improving together. One would not be able to find such good conditions elsewhere. If one remained stagnant, one would never be able to improve. Xiao Chen now understood why the younger generation bladesmen would flock to this tea party. Following etiquette, Xiao Chen returned a cup of tea to Bai Lang and took a sip. Then, he started to prepare to explain his flawless saber Tao. Xiao Chen had been rather famous in the past few years. However, no one had seen him draw his saber for a long time. Rumors of him abandoning his identity as a bladesman had already spread. When the crowd saw that Xiao Chen was about to speak, they did not show too serious expressions. They did not believe that a person who abandoned his identity as a bladesman could speak about the Tao or reason. Jiang Qingzi showed disdain on his face. "Young city lord, the Tao comes with your words. You speak of wondrous theories, and made the 3 ancient saber sovereigns show themselves. You are a fellow who does not even have a saber. Don't come out and embarrass yourself and make a fool of yourself." Feng Xingxing could not stand it any longer. He said sullenly, "Jiang Qingzi, don't break the rules of the tea party. This is not the time for you to interrupt." When Jiang Qingzi saw Bai Lang, who was sitting in the middle, reveal an unhappy expression, his lips curled up and he did not say anything more. Xiao Chen sat down casually. When he saw that no one spoke, he said, "I have a Tao that I would like to discuss with everyone. It is called the Flawless Saber Tao. Using the body as a saber, using my thoughts as a saber. With a thought, my hair can become a saber, my clothes can become a saber, my fist light can become a saber, and the wind from my legs can become a saber." When Jiang Qingzi heard this, he could not help mocking softly, "You are bragging." However, right after Jiang Qingzi spoke, He saw that Xiao Chen's expression was solemn and respectful, his expression grave. Black wind danced without any wind, and his clothes fluttered. A boundless saber intent shot out from Xiao Chen's body. As Xiao Chen's black hair fluttered, it was like every strand of hair turned into a treasure saber, bright and dazzling, radiating an unparalleled saber intent. His clothes fluttered in the wind like an unending chain of treasured sabers dancing in the air. In an instant, everyone, including Bai Lang, stopped looking down on Xiao Chen. Now they revealed grave expressions. When Xiao Chen spoke, heavenly flowers rained down. The moment he spoke, he shocked everyone present. When I raise my hand, it is like a treasure saber being unsheathed, giving off a bright, unparalleled light. I am the most flawless treasure saber in the world. King Chang. Xiao Chen continued speaking without pause. A melodious saber hum resounded behind him, reverberating in the surroundings. A bright saber light came from Xiao Chen's body and turned into a bright moon hanging high in the sky, giving off a bright light. I use my thoughts as a saber. Everything I think, and everything I decide is a saber. Everything I see is where the saber points. What is flawless? The path that I walk is one that no one has ever walked before or since. It is flawless and perfect. No one can compare to my saber Tao. It is like the bright moon in the sky, perfectly round and flawless, cold and beautiful. With a flip of my hand, the night sky hangs upside down. The bright moon in the sky became increasingly resplendent. Everyone looked up. At some point in time, night had already fallen. This round of moonlight already covered up all the light. Bai Lang's heart sank. No one has ever walked before or since. He really dares to say anything. Boom, boom, boom. The 18 stone pillars with the carvings of the ancient saber sovereigns flickered with resplendent lights one after another. The legendary scene of the ancient saber sovereign appearing and listening to his speech appeared once again. However, unlike Bai Lang, before Xiao Chen even finished speaking, 9 ancient saber sovereigns' stone pillars lit up. After Bai Lang finished speaking, only 3 stone pillars lit up. However, Xiao Chen immediately lit up 9, far surpassing his opponent. The ancient saber sovereign appearing and his saber intent soaring into the sky. When everyone in the heavenly cauldron plaza saw this shocking scene again, they all gaped speechlessly. They did not know what kind of peerless genius had appeared at this tea party. Flawless 4 seasons, peach blossoms, summer sun, autumn wind, winter snow, spring thunder roared, and peach blossoms bloomed for 5 kilometers around. The fragrance of flowers spread everywhere, and spring was overflowing. The blazing sun hung high in the sky, and the ground cracked and turned scarlet for 50 kilometers around. This was the hottest summer. The autumn wind blew mercilessly, sweeping through the world. There was no color within 50 kilometers. What entered his eyes was another snow-white land. Xiao Chen continued speaking. The flawless saber Tao, using the body as a saber, was the foundation. How to merge the flawless saber Tao with the martial techniques one learned and truly materialize this saber Tao was an even more profound technique. As Xiao Chen spoke, all sorts of mysterious phenomena flashed continuously. The bright moon rose and fell, the peach blossoms of spring, the blazing sun of summer, the cold wind of autumn, and the heavy snow of winter appeared and disappeared. The 18 stone pillars with the carvings of the ancient saber sovereigns flickered one after another, and saber hums rang out. As Xiao Chen spoke, the 18 saber sovereigns' stone pillars all appeared. It was a miraculous scene of the ancient saber sovereigns appearing and listening attentively. All the bladesmen and heroes present gaped, their faces filled with shock. They had not expected this at all. Xiao Chen's comprehension of the saber Tao was so deep and unfathomable that these 18 ancient saber sovereigns all appeared. Chapter 961. Jiang Qingzi, who mocked Xiao Chen earlier, had an extremely unsightly expression on his pale face. He had not expected such a scene to occur. Flawless, flawless. My heart is higher than the sky. I want to create this perfect and flawless saber Tao. However, I have my doubts. Is there really something flawless in the world? The moon is flawless, but the moon waxes and wanes, the 4 seasons are flawless. However, in the extreme north and south, half the year is extreme day and half the year is extreme night. There are always 2 seasons missing. I have my doubts as well. I use my body as a saber and my thoughts as a saber. However, where should the saber in my hand be? Where should the saber in my heart be? Xiao Chen spoke very sincerely. The first half was about his attainments, and the second half was about his inadequacies and doubts. Xiao Chen spoke continuously, not stopping at all. He spoke in one go. After he finished speaking, everyone was stunned. After he finished speaking, he felt strangely delighted. Many of his doubts seemed to be stirred up, and he vaguely saw a ray of hope. Right after Xiao Chen spoke, the various mysterious phenomena that appeared as he spoke vanished one by one. Just as everyone was savoring the aftertaste and savoring it, the ancient saber sovereign image sitting on the stone pillar did not slowly disappear like before. Instead, it spoke shockingly. I have a Tao that I wish to discuss with everyone. It is called the Massacre Saber Tao. The saber is a weapon of slaughter. It is born to kill. Naturally, it should kill all life, destroy everything, exterminate everything. I have a Tao that I wish to discuss with everyone. It is called the Heaven-Mending Saber Tao. The Heavenly Tao is hard to find, and the Heavenly Saber is hard to find. I have a Tao that I wish to discuss with everyone. It is called the Death Saber Tao. Everything is born to die. We bladesmen go against the heavens, seeking life in death. I have a Tao that I wish to discuss with everyone. It is called the Thunder Saber Tao. Thunder is the hand of the Heavenly Tao, a calamity of the heavens. The vast sagely sound merged together, layering over each other and reverberating in the world. This sound that transcended time and space enveloped the entire heavenly cauldron city. When the ancient appeared and spoke, 7 colored heavenly flowers descended for 50 kilometers around. All the bladesmen in Heavenly Cauldron City were stunned. Under the encirclement of this holy music, spiritual sounds rang out in their mind. After they reacted, they all sat down cross-legged and started to carefully comprehend the Saber Tao in their hearts. None of the spectators had anticipated that something like this would happen. In just a short moment, the faces of the young outstanding talents flickered, and they quickly sat down cross-legged. Without saying anything, they all began to contemplate. The reason why the ancient sage spoke was not because the ancient sage had come back to life, but because of Xiao Chen. The images of the speeches of the ancient sages had transcended the distance of time and appeared in the present. This was a rare opportunity. If he lost it, it would be impossible to find it again. The experience of the ancient saber sovereigns was very precious. 18 ancient saber sovereigns all giving lectures at the same time. Such a scene was unprecedented, something that had never happened before. However, how much he could hear would depend on his own talent and comprehension. When the voices of the 18 ancient saber sovereigns overlapped, it would not be easy to distinguish them. Inside the Heavenly Cauldron City's City Lord's residence, Bai Lang's father, the blue-robed emperor, looked at the 7-colored heavenly flowers falling from the sky. The holy music resounded endlessly in his ears. This person, who was only one step away from becoming Emperor Wu, could not help changing his expression. The vast voices layered over each other, spreading throughout the entire Heavenly Cauldron City for 4 hours. The appearance of the ancient Saber Sovereign and the speech of the Saber Sovereign slowly faded away, and the world regained its calm. However, the cultivators of Heavenly Cauldron City could not calm down for a long time. After this day, the status of Heavenly Cauldron City among the profound domain's bladesmen soared. It even vaguely equaled the top holy land for bladesmen, Heavenly Saber City, which the Saber Sovereign Wu Shaotian governed. Under the 18 stone pillars in the center of the plaza, Bai Lang and the others slowly opened their eyes. As the outstanding talents of the younger generation, they had received the ancient sage's speech at close range. The comprehension they gained was much greater than that of ordinary people. Everyone gained something, and their faces filled with satisfaction. Xiao Chen was the last to open his eyes. He had absorbed a vast amount of divine liquid in the heavenly dew divine spring, and his comprehension ability was startling. Xiao Chen had memorized the 18 different saber sovereigns' saber Tao in his heart, not missing a single word. When he returned, he could immediately write it down. It would be a valuable asset. No one here had Xiao Chen's talent. Even Bai Lang only memorized 5 different saber Tao techniques, and that was already far beyond that of ordinary people. Whoosh! This cup of tea is a toast to you, a formal apology to Brother Xiao. This Bai had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai, causing the world to mock me. I hope Brother Xiao will forgive me. Bai Lang opened his eyes and personally poured a cup of tea. Then, he flew it over to Xiao Chen. After seeing Xiao Chen's attainments in the saber Tao, Bai Lang immediately picked up the tea and apologized, not putting on any airs at all. Xiao Chen opened his mouth and spoke, causing the 18 ancient saber sovereigns to appear. The holy music transcended time and space, arriving at Heavenly Cauldron City at the same time. If this was not considered a bladesman, then there really were no bladesmen in the world. The crowd did not show any disdain or mockery for Bai Lang's apology. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand and caught the teacup. After taking a sip, he placed it on the table and said, "It's fine. Brother Bai is a true bladesman. I can understand your thoughts." Bai Lang nodded slightly without anyone noticing. Then, he continued, "The flawless saber Tao is indeed unique. It makes everyone's eyes light up. It is unprecedented, without any falsehood. When I heard your doubts in the second half of your speech, I have some insights that I would like to discuss with Brother Xiao." A thought occurred to Xiao Chen. He smiled and said, "Feel free to speak your mind. Fellow Taoists, if you have any opinions, I hope you can speak your mind freely." The second half of your speech focused on a few questions. I will talk about the first one, using the body as a saber and my thoughts as a saber. How should the saber in my hand be used? Bai Lang paused for a moment, as though he was weighing his words. Then he continued, "I feel that this question is a little excessive. For us bladesmen, the saber is a part of the body. There is an ancient saying, as long as the saber exists, the person exists. If the saber dies, the person dies." Xiao Chen's eyes lit up as he entered deep thought. Using the body as a saber, hair as a saber, clothes as a saber? However, why could one not use a saber as a saber? However, a saber was a saber in the first place. Because of this, he had gotten himself into trouble. Seeing the saber as something like hair or clothes, how should the saber in my hand be used? This question was solved without even needing to be addressed. The Inferno Saber Sovereign's disciple, Lin Yen, smiled and said, "I also have some views on the flawless saber Tao. It does not have to be flawless for it to be perfect. There is no such thing as flawless in the world. However, that does not mean that there is nothing perfect. Perfection does not mean that there are no flaws. For example, Brother Xiao, I felt that the bright moon earlier was the perfect moon. When it is perfect, it is naturally flawless. There had never been such a saber Tao in the world before. Even the saber Taos of the 18 ancient saber sovereigns, which were all-encompassing, did not touch the flawless saber Tao. Being able to participate in this discussion of the saber Tao gave Xiao Chen the feeling of making history. He could foresee that once the flawless saber Tao reached the peak, its name would go down in history, leaving behind a thick stroke in the martial epoch. All the bladesmen present were very excited, speaking up enthusiastically. Regardless of whether they were right or wrong, at the very least, they opened up a path for Xiao Chen. From the point of view of others, he could see something different. Finally, after this topic ended, Bai Lang put down his teacup and gently patted the table. The treasure saber at the side, along with its scabbard, sank 1 centimeter into the high platform with a clang. Dang! 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 The others all followed suit, stabbing their own treasured sabers into the stone platform. Immediately, saber chi surged and buzzed. A strong saber intent lingered in the place. Xiao Chen understood that this was the second part of the tea party. Making friends with the saber was also the highlight of the tea party. After all, no matter how good the words were, the effects would only be seen when they fought. With a slight movement, the lunar shadow saber also stabbed into the high platform with its scabbard. Feng Xingxing, I have long heard of your great name. Will you give me some pointers? After everyone stabbed their sabers into the high platform, a tall, skinny man in long robes challenged Feng Xingxing to a duel. Feng Xingxing smiled faintly and said, I can't say that I am giving you pointers. Just exchanging pointers will suffice. Whoosh! The two soared into the air at the same time. Then, they stretched out their hands, and 2 strands of saber light flickered. Their treasured sabers hummed as they drew their scabbards. Then, the 2 of them started exchanging moves in the air. When the people below looked up slightly, they could clearly see the fight. Occasionally, they discussed it with their friend. The two's fight was remarkable. However, Feng Xingxing was clearly stronger. He was very clear on his talent. He only needed 1 point of the wind saber Dao to make a breakthrough and comprehend, which was the endless gentle breeze. Amid the lingering gentle breeze, saber intent was everywhere. Amid the gentleness, there was killing intent everywhere. After another 200 moves, their opponents took the initiative to admit defeat. The 2 sheathed their sabers, bowed, and returned to their seat. After that, the tea party slowly reached its climax. Bladesmen from all over made a dazzling appearance. Xiao Qin watched all of them. The ones that left the deepest impression on him were the disciples of the Inferno Saber Sovereign and the Thunder Saber Sovereign, Lin Yen and Duguju. A few people challenged the 2. However, the 2 defeated them within 100 moves. The Thunder Dao and the Raging Flame Dao were brought out to their limits in the 2's sabers. Surging flames erupted like volcanoes. When the sabers chopped down, red flaming clouds filled the sky for 5 kilometers around, looking startling. Naturally, the one that caught Xiao Chen's attention was the Thunder Saber Sovereign's descendant, Duguju. Xiao Chen's quintessence was lightning attributed in the first place. The will that he comprehended was also the will of thunder. Of course, he wanted to compete with this person. Duguju's saber technique made Xiao Chen's eyes light up. The thunder saber technique that the other party comprehended could be described with 2 words: speed and explosive power. People often used lightning to describe it. When a person's speed reached its limits, their saber would also reach its limit. However, it would be a huge mistake to think that speed was all there was to it. The instantaneous explosive power was similarly horrifying, shaking the entire Heavenly Cauldron Plaza intensely. The power of lightning was not limited to speed and explosive power. Xiao Chen had experienced lightning tribulations, enduring the baptism of thousands of lightning bolts. However, the other party probably understood this principle. After all, he had a greater heavenly martial emperor to teach him. He understood the principle of biting off more than he could chew. Hence, he brought out these 2 characteristics to their limit. Xiao Chen could not help comparing this person to Enjuanshi. If the 2 fought, it would be very exciting. Xiao Chen, your eloquence leaves others speechless. However, I do not know how many true moves you have. I, Jiang Qingzi, would like to exchange a few moves with you. Chapter 962. The Ghost Race's Jiang Qingzi looked straight at Xiao Chen and challenged him. Everyone immediately became interested. No matter how profound the flawless saber Dao was in theory, it still required combat prowess to convince others. Xiao Chen gladly accepted. He stretched out his hand and said, "Please!" Clang! Jiang Qingzi's figure flashed like a ghost, and he was already standing in the air. The black saber stabbed into the ground was already grasped in his hand. Before Xiao Chen could get up, Jiangqing Zi's figure flashed, charging towards Xiao Chen, who was behind the tea table. Dense death qi lingered around Jiangqing Zi's body. As his figure flashed, a horrifying scene of hell materialized behind him. A black saber light flashed and arrived before Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand and pressed it against the other party's saber tip. The lightning talisman in his sea of consciousness circulated, and thousands of peach blossoms slowly fell from the sky. Boundless life force surged out from Xiao Chen's body. Spring was the time when all things awakened. This was the time when the life force was the strongest. When the peach blossoms formed a forest, their fragrance spread out for 5 kilometers around. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand and sent Jiangqing Zi's somewhat unruly attack flying. Then, Xiao Chen stretched out his hand and pinched, and the thousands of peach blossoms turned into one. Then, it landed between Xiao Chen's fingers. Then, he gently pushed it towards the retreating Jiangqing Zi. Dang! Jiangqing Zi held his saber horizontally in front of him, forming a pitch-black screen of sabers, trying to block this small peach blossom. Who knew, when the peach blossoms bloomed, the power contained in the completed spring saber far surpassed his expectations. It directly blasted him back, and the hell behind him looked like it was going to crumble. Xiao Chen did not give Jiangqing Zi a chance to make up for his mistake. His figure flashed, and a bright saber light radiated from his body. With a clang, saber intent shot out in all directions, turning into saber winds that swept out in all directions, making it difficult to open one's eyes. Xiao Chen executed the summer saber, the autumn saber, and the winter saber consecutively. Flawless 4 seasons intertwined. Amid the snowflakes, Jiangqing Zi's lips leaked blood. Frost covered his body, and an ice sculpture of a flower lingered on his chest. Jiangqing Zi said with some dissatisfaction, "I admit defeat." In just 4 moves, aside from Jiangqing Zi breaking the rules and gaining the initiative, Xiao Chen had been suppressing him with his flawless saber Dao, giving him no chance to resist. The entire place fell silent. Jiangqing Zi's quick defeat was simply unexpected. After this battle, no one would dare to underestimate the combat prowess of the flawless saber Dao. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand, and the ice flower on her chest landed in his palm. "Thank you for going easy on me. Bye-bye Lang, bye-bye Chen's eyes." Xiao Chen, Xiao Lang Chen's eyes. Chen. A spark flashed in Bai Lang's eyes. He stood up and said, "Brother Xiao, how about we exchange a few moves?" Aside from Xiao Chen, the strongest person here was Bai Lang. It was very likely that Bai Lang had comprehended a saber soul as well. Chen's mountains Lang's SS Kings. Xiao Chen felt excited. He was very interested in Bai Lang's suggestion. There were many people here, but Bai Lang was the only one who could truly make him fight to his heart's content. However, just as Xiao Chen was about to agree, a discordant voice suddenly came from outside. "How lively! Brother Bai Lang, unexpectedly, despite your mediocre skills with the saber, you are rather good at hosting this tea party. I was wondering if I should invite Brother Bai to help out at the Sword Sect tea party in 3 days." The discordant voice in the air approached from afar, causing Xiao Chen and Bai Lang to frown involuntarily. Everyone looked up and saw a few sword lights flying over from the distance. The strong sword intent was unparalleled. Even from far away, they could feel the overwhelming aura. These people are coming with ill intentions. It's the Sword Sovereign's disciples. I guess that these fellows would definitely come to the tea party to cause trouble. The Sword Sovereign's first disciple, Qin Shaoqin, who is as famous as Wen Ziren. Unexpectedly, he is here as well. Wen Ziren is not here. This is going to be troublesome. Some of the Profound Domain's native bladesmen did not find the arrival of these swordsmen strange. It was like they had expected it. It looked like the conflict between the saber and the sword had been going on for a long time in the Profound Domain. Furthermore, the conflict was extraordinarily large. Xiao Chen thought about his encounter at Sword Forging Peak. Be it a bladesman or a swordsman, they did not find each other pleasing to the eye. It was not hard to guess the other party's purpose in coming. The sword Dao tea party was about to begin. The three of them must have taken advantage of the situation to ruin the saber Dao tea party and strengthen the reputation of the sword Dao tea party. In the profound domain, the saber sovereign and the sword sovereign stood side by side. This made the conflict between the saber and the sword much more intense than anywhere else. Bai Lang looked up. He did not show much shock or anger on his face. He only smiled with some pity. They came faster than I expected. Brother Xiao Chen, I'm afraid we will not be able to fight this time. Xiao Chen sized up the person with the strongest aura in the distance. Then, he asked, is this Qin Shaoqing very strong? Very strong. Among the younger generation bladesmen of the profound domain, only my senior brother can defeat him. Among the swordsmen, aside from that Yen Shi-san, who is even more mysterious than my senior brother, no one can stop him. The two people beside him, Gu Jianheng and Lu Kuan, are also sword sovereign's disciples. I am not confident of defeating them. As Bai Lang spoke, Qin Shaoqing led his two junior brothers, Gu Jianheng and Lu Kuan, to within 500 meters of the crowd. All of them had startling auras, and their gazes were like swords, showing stern expressions. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and looked past these three people. Even further away, there were three black dots with strong auras. These people gave Xiao Chen a familiar feeling. However, they were too far away. He could not see them with his spiritual sense, so he could only keep an eye on them. 50 kilometers away, 2 men and 1 woman hovered in the air. The man on the left was handsome and had an extraordinary aura. His cultivation was unfathomable. However, that was still considered normal. The man on the right had a handsome face that could topple cities. He had a deep and enchanting aura, a fatal attraction to women. It was hard to imagine that there could be such a handsome man in the world. The girl in the middle was not inferior to him at all. She had a face that could bring disaster to a nation. Every frown and smile of hers could captivate the soul, captivating people. The girl was the Fox King's adopted daughter Bai. The handsome man was the Spirit Fox race's genius, Yuan Su. The other person was the Peacock King's descendant, Kong Yuan. The younger generation of the Fiend domain was weaker than the other 4 races. If not for these 3 people rising up, the Fiend race would be in an even worse state in this great age. Big Brother Yuan, why don't we follow them? The tea party will definitely be very lively. Who knows, elder brother Xiao Chen might be there, Bai said, feeling confused. Yuan Su explained, Qin Shaoqing's trip involves the competition between the saber and the sword in the profound domain. If we go together, it will cause a misunderstanding, making them think that we are with them. Just wait for him here. We are just using his relationship to get you into the Heavenly Sword Pavilion to read the ancient books. There is no need to offend the profound domain's saber sovereign's bloodline for him. As for Xiao Chen, I once heard that the Heavenly Cauldron City's young city lord publicly stated that he would not give him an invitation and would not appear here. Bai revealed a disappointed expression. She sighed and said, I have not seen elder brother Xiao Chen for several years. I wonder if elder brother Xiao Chen still remembers Bai. Kong Yuan smiled and said, There is no need to worry. Bai is very obedient. If he dares to forget, I will definitely teach him a lesson. Furthermore, since he appeared at Sword Forging Peak, he will not leave the profound domain anytime soon. There will definitely be a chance for us to meet again. Bai nodded and said, Right? This time, we definitely can't miss out on elder brother Xiao Chen. As Yuan Su and Kong Yuan looked at Bai, they revealed gentle and doting expressions. They envied Xiao Chen in their hearts. After so many years, Bai still could not forget him. When the 3 people from the Sword Sovereign's faction arrived on the tall platform, the atmosphere in the air became extremely tense. The azure-clad swordsman Qin Shaoqing casually sized up the bladesmen below with grave expressions. He smiled and said, There is no need to be so nervous. With your cultivations, I would not even look at most of you, much less make a move against you. Arrogant. Everyone here was an outstanding youth, a proud and unruly person. Qin Shaoqing's words immediately upset several of them. The Inferno Saber Sovereign's disciple, Lin Yan, was not a native of the profound domain. He had never heard of Qin Shaoqing's name before. He snorted coldly and took out his treasure saber, soaring into the air and chopping at Qin Shaoqing. Intense flames burned the clouds for 5 kilometers around. The might of one saber filled the sky with red clouds, looking boundlessly vast. Qin Shaoqing stood upright with his hands behind his back, not making a move. Gu Jianheng, who stood on his right, drew his sword and charged forward. When Gu Jianheng unleashed his strong sword intent, he immediately suppressed Lin Yan's aura. The 5 kilometers of fiery clouds shrank significantly, and even their speed slowed. Sword soul! Someone below exclaimed. This Gu Jianheng's sword intent had already risen to a higher-level sword soul, completely suppressing Lin Yan. Dang! The might of one sword strike forced back the surging and horrifying Lin Yan. Lin Yan moved back 1 kilometer, his qi and blood surging. This was just a probing move. The difference in strength was clear. If they fought for real, barring any surprises, Lin Yan would lose after 500 moves. When Bai Lang saw this scene, he frowned slightly and said, Qin Shaoqing, what are you trying to do? The purpose of the tea party is to exchange pointers and discuss the Tao. It is not for you to show off your might. Gu Jianheng smiled coldly and said, If you are not capable, why are you trying to imitate your seniors and hold a tea party? Today we are here to slap your face. In the future, you bladesmen should be more low-profile in the profound domain. Don't think that just because when Xiren appeared, you can ride all over us swordsmen. The saber will always be inferior to the sword. Qin Shaoqing glanced at the treasure saber stuck in the ground and said, Right now, you are making friends with the saber, right? Coincidentally, I want to use the sword as well. Let me spar with everyone. Bang! Bang! Qin Shaoqing stretched out his hand and stabbed the treasure sword into the platform. When the sword qi spread out, it knocked away the other people's treasured sabers. If someone defeats me, I will personally apologize and leave immediately. If no one defeats me, then I will personally apologize. If no one can defeat me, I feel that there is no need for the Saber Dao Tea Party to continue. Qin Shaoqing appeared insufferably arrogant. His tone was startlingly arrogant, not caring about the crowd at all. Bai Lang's heart sank. This Qin Shaoqing must be doing this on purpose. He must have gotten news that senior brother one had something to do and could not rush over, so he purposely came to cause trouble. Furthermore, Qin Shaoqing was very ambitious, wanting to disrupt the inheritance of the Tea Party. Chapter 963. The Saber Sovereign and the Sword Sovereign did not get along. They had been competing for supremacy for more than 1,000 years, but neither could do anything to the other. If Qin Shaoqing really ruined today's matter to the point of losing all face and news of this reached Xiao Chen's master, he would definitely punish him. Just one Gu Jianheng easily knocked back the Inferno Saber Sovereign's disciple, Lin Yan. Although there were many bladesmen here, who would dare to challenge Qin Shaoqing? What's wrong? You don't even have that much courage? Qin Shaoqing mocked. Bai Lang, are the people you gathered a bunch of trash? You can't even find someone with some courage. I think there is really no need for this tea party to continue. Rage surged in Bai Lang's heart. He simply could not endure this. He raised his foot, wanting to step forward and accept Qin Shaoqing's challenge. However, someone was faster than him. Right after Qin Shaoqing spoke, Xiao Chen's figure flashed, and he leaped forward. Brother Xiao, this is a competition between the saber and the sword of my profound domain. Let me do it. Seeing Xiao Chen step forward, Bai Lang's first reaction was gratitude. However, he still advised Xiao Chen not to make a move, so he immediately sent a voice projection. Xiao Chen replied calmly, "Brother Bai Lang, what are your chances of victory?" 40%. Can the Saber Dao Tea Party afford to lose face like this? Not at all. Since I've stood out, I'm 100% confident. Brother Bai, just watch. Using voice projection, the two quickly exchanged a few words. Then, Bai Lang remained silent. Xiao Chen's consecutive questions already clearly pointed out the crux of the problem. Qin Shaoqing sized up Xiao Chen, who stepped forward. Then, he smiled and said, "Bai Lang, is that all you are capable of? Sending an outsider up. It turns out that the Saber Sovereign's bloodline is indeed cowardly." Xiao Chen retorted indifferently, "There is no need for the young city lord to make a move to deal with you. What shameless boasting! Is it your turn to speak to our young master here?" Gu Jianheng snorted coldly. Then, he raised his sword and turned into a beam of sword light, charging at Xiao Chen. Behind him, there were 9 balls of light that looked like blazing suns. They were like 9 brilliant suns, and the light was so dazzling that no one dared to look at them directly. The might of Xiao Chen's small perfection sword soul spread out, emitting a vigorous aura. On the high platform, some of the wooden tables behind Xiao Chen immediately shattered. Some of the bladesmen got up and retreated, circulating their energies to block. Their expressions were somewhat unsightly. Sword intent and sword soul were essentially the same, but the difference between the two was like water and ice. The latter's might was several times greater than the former's. A swordsman who comprehended a sword soul held an overwhelming advantage over a bladesman who did not. Unless there was a huge gap in their cultivation, their chances of victory were slim. This Gu Jianheng before Xiao Chen relied on the might of his sword soul to take Xiao Chen down a notch, forcing him to retreat. However, Xiao Chen's feet did not move at all. No matter how the other party drove the might of his sword soul, his body remained like an old tree, unmoving like a mountain. If one looked carefully, even his hair and clothes did not move. The reason was none other than the small perfection saber soul hidden in Xiao Chen's purple lightning talisman already spread throughout his entire body. With the help of the immortal will of thunder, how could the other party touch him? Xiao Chen's small perfection saber soul already possessed the immortal attribute. It was an immortal saber soul. Unless the other party also comprehended a will and had an attribute that rivaled the immortal attribute, they would not be able to suppress him with just might. How can this be? Gu Jianheng paled slightly, not daring to believe the scene before him. He had already unleashed the might of his small perfection sword soul without holding anything back. However, not to mention flying back in a sorry state, Xiao Chen's hair did not even move. Qin Shaoqing's expression changed slightly. His eyes widened as he understood the reason behind it. He said, "Junior brother Jianheng, you have not comprehended a will. Quickly back off." However, it was already too late. Boom! The immortal saber soul that Xiao Chen had infused into his body burst out. Clang! 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 Metallic clangs of saber and sword clashing rang out continuously in the air. Intense shock waves exploded in the air. The saber wind and sword wind intertwined, forming a twisting hurricane that surged out. Everywhere the hurricane passed, aside from the 18 stone pillars of the Saber Sovereigns, the buildings and statues in the plaza shattered under the might of this boundless hurricane. The hurricane was filled with terrifying saber chi and sword chi. Occasionally, lightning and fiery light flickered, looking extremely horrifying. Gu Jianheng and Lu Kuan had already been knocked back the instant Xiao Chen unleashed his immortal saber soul. At this moment, the ones clashing in the plaza were Qin Shaoqing and Xiao Chen. The various mysterious phenomena were the result of their intense battle. Although it was an intense battle, the two on the tall platform did not move at all. They only looked at each other coldly as they continuously unleashed their saber soul and sword soul. In the end, lightning flashed and thunder roared around Xiao Chen. Purple saber chi flew everywhere. Scorching flames floated around Qin Shaoqing's body. Snow-white sword chi danced around wildly, releasing a world-shaking state of destruction. The two's auras soared to their limits. The saber light and sword light on their bodies were already as resplendent as the sun. They soared into the clouds, their voices echoing for 5 kilometers around. The people in the Heavenly Cauldron Plaza had already retreated to the side, watching from afar. Only Bai Lang, Feng Xingxing, Lin Yan, Duguju, and a few others dared to get close to watch. Be it a bladesman or a swordsman, Wu Luan's path was much more difficult than that of regular cultivators. A strong saber intent and sword intent already gave them the qualifications to challenge those of a higher cultivation realm. At the same time, they also comprehended wills, which contained a certain attribute. Aside from demonic geniuses, there was no other way to describe such a swordsman or bladesman. Right now, there were 2 such demonic geniuses facing each other on the tall platform. Bai Lang's expression turned grave as he muttered to himself, Qin Shaoqing is truly unfathomable. His will of fire actually contains the state of destruction. No wonder he dared to barge in with just the 3 of them. With such strength, he would not fear being surrounded by people of the same generation. However, what surprised Bai Lang even more was Shao Chun. Originally, he had never thought of roping him into the tea party. Not only did Shao Chun discuss the Tao over tea, but he also caused the ancient people to show themselves and the 18 saber sovereigns to speak at the same time. Such a miraculous scene appeared at the tea party. Now, Shao Chun blocked the sword sovereign's first disciple, who came to cause trouble. All of this gave Bai Lang an unimaginable shock. The 2 attacked at the same time. Qin Shaoqing drew his sword. The treasure sword looked like frost, giving off a cold light. Then, he thrust it at Shao Chen's throat. A surging fiery light howled behind Qin Shaoqing. This sword strike was like a volcano that had been dormant for hundreds of years. The sky shook and many cracks appeared in the ground. Shao Chen took a step forward, and a bright moon rose behind him. With a flash, spring thunder roared, and peach blossoms bloomed for 5 kilometers around. Then, he pointed with his finger and blocked the tip of the other party's sword. A horrifying explosion resounded, and the 2 each took 10 steps back. A fiery sword qi containing an intense state of destruction surged out from Shao Chen's body, surging unparalleled. The moment it entered, it wanted to tear Shao Chen's meridians, flesh, bones, and skin to shreds. It possessed startling destructive power. The attack was ferocious and intense. Shao Chen did not dare to be careless. He used 5 times his law energy, turning it into purple lightning before he managed to destroy this sword qi. If Shao Chen had been a little slower or not been decisive enough, using only 2 or 3 times his law energy, his right hand would have been crippled. An immortal energy flowed through the sword and into Qin Shaoqing's body. It felt like needles piercing through his meridians and bones. Qin Shaoqing's right hand, which held the sword, felt a heart-wrenching pain. That energy was full of life force, possessing a strong life force. Qin Shaoqing tried to extinguish it a few times, but a strand of electric light leaped out and regrew like a seed. The tall platform under Shao Chen's feet was already in tatters, leaving only the 18 stone pillars standing alone. Both of them looked at each other with a hint of caution. This place is not big enough. If you want to fight, come with me outside the city. Shao Chen said indifferently. Electric light flashed under his feet, and he flew out of Heavenly Cauldron City. At Martial Sage, the range of a fight was already startlingly large. Earlier, in the gathering of friends with the saber, the various bladesmen had purposely suppressed their cultivations. These bladesmen did not have any intention of fighting, only exchanging pointers. Their destructive power would not be sufficient. However, now, Shao Chen and Qin Shaoqing's reputation was at stake. Clearly, they had to decide who was stronger. They had no choice but to bring out their full strength. A strange light flashed in Qin Shaoqing's eyes. Before he came, he already knew that when Ziren was not around, he was very confident that he could turn this saber Dao tea party into a joke. At the same time, he would establish the reputation of this saber Dao tea party. Unexpectedly, a white-robed bladesman suddenly appeared out of nowhere. This immediately messed up Qin Shaoqing's plans. I want to see what kind of person you are to dare to block my attack. In the profound domain, Qin Shaoqing could be said to not fear anything. As a disciple of the Sword Sovereign, Qin Shaoqing looked down on most cultivators of the same generation. He had never truly feared anyone. A fiery light streaked across the sky like a meteor, leaving a long trail of flames lingering in the air for a long time. Qin Shaoqing did not hesitate to chase after Shao Chun out of Heavenly Cauldron City. Standing far away from the city, Bai, Kong Yuan and Kong Yuan, who were waiting for Qin Shaoqing, suddenly discovered two beams of intense light flying towards them. This is not good. Qin Shaoqing probably ran into Wen Ziren. Let's move aside first and not interfere. Yuan Su's expression changed slightly, and he quickly revealed his true form, turning into a jade-white nine-tailed spirit fox with a surging fiendish qi. Yuan Su carried Bai and Kong Yuan and leaped into the air, moving 5 kilometers away. The two exchanged only one move, but the commotion they caused left a deep impression on the many bladesmen present. Seeing the two leave the city, hundreds of figures immediately flew out of the city and gave chase, not wanting to miss the scene of the fight. By the time the two gave chase, Shao Chun and Qin Shaoqing, who were 50 kilometers away from the city, had already exchanged more than 100 moves. There was always a bright moon hanging high in the sky, shrouding everything within a 50-kilometer radius in the night. However, the sky was not dark in this night. Be it Shao Chen's will of thunder or the lightning that occasionally leaked out, they lit up the sky. Chapter 964. Furthermore, the resplendent flames around Qin Shaoqing never stopped burning. This night did not seem dark at all. Instead, it was strangely bright, forming a strange scene. The two exchanged moves below a mountain range that spanned 50 kilometers. The birds and beasts in the forest had already fled in fright, and all the plants and trees were destroyed. Qin Shaoqing's sword qi possessed unparalleled destructive power. As the sword qi surged out, large swathes of trees turned into dust. The ground turned into yellow dirt. Not a single blade of grass could be seen, and cracks spread out. In an instant, the shock waves from the two's exchange turned the mountain range for 50 kilometers into a barren, rocky mountain. Such a horrifying scene prompted the Heavenly Cauldron City bladesmen, who came to watch the fight, to stay far away, lest they accidentally get caught up in the shock waves and end up in trouble. Shao Chun had already executed flawless 4 seasons several times. However, he could not do anything to Qin Shaoqing. Qin Shaoqing's sword techniques had many killing moves. Furthermore, before the strong destructive attribute, the might of all the killing moves increased significantly. Shao Chun used brute force to destroy flawless 4 seasons. Unable to execute the killing moves of Cycle of Seasons and Cycle of Life and Death, Shao Chun fell into a passive position. Left without a choice, Shao Chun could only bring out his immortal will of thunder and use his flawless saber Dao to materialize the lightning tribulation saber technique, using brute force to counter brute force. More than 100 lightning dragons appeared. Jin Lin had 2 horns on their heads. They circled around and roared ferociously, shaking their heads and wagging their tails. They looked very lifelike. They could even spit out lightning dragon breaths to disrupt Qin Shaoqing. Naturally, the dragon breaths were not true dragon breaths. They were the manifestation of purple lightning saber qi. However, they were not weak at all. Occasionally, the lightning dragon breaths landed on the mountain peaks below. The 1-kilometer-tall peaks vanished in an instant as if a monster had bitten them off. The lightning tribulation saber technique was boundlessly tyrannical. Every time Shao Chun punched or sent out a palm strike, a saber light flashed. In the next moment, lightning dragons appeared to block the overbearing Qin Shaoqing. True flame burned on Qin Shaoqing's sword. Every time he swung it, flames surged and surged, creating an intense explosion. It wasn't an exaggeration to describe that terrifying destructive power as earth-shattering. It shook the entire mountain range for hundreds of kilometers, causing countless boulders to tumble down. Seeing that the other party's lightning dragons seemed to be endless, able to block his sword moves every time, Qin Shaoqing frowned, unwilling to continue fighting like this. 9 suns rise together, the golden crow destroys the world. With a loud shout, the 25 kilometers of resplendent flames behind him quickly gathered and condensed into 9 three-legged golden crows. Each of the golden crows was as dazzling as the sun. Shao Qin pointed with his sword, and the 9 huge flaming golden crows turned into 9 streaks of golden light that charged at the 100 lightning dragons. Kacha kacha! The golden crow was incomparably savage. With a swipe of its 3 legs, it tore the golden crows in half, causing them to wail endlessly. Shao Qian's heart sank. The golden crow condensed by the other party's true life flame far surpassed his lightning dragon in terms of divine nature. It was the bane of lightning dragon. Divine lightning tribulation. Chop! With a thought, Shao Qin quickly gathered the remaining lightning dragons. Then, the will of the purple lightning talisman continuously strengthened them. A golden bolt of divine lightning appeared in the air, and turned into a saber chi that chopped down at the 9 golden crows. The might of the divine lightning tribulation appeared on the spot, knocking the 9 sun-like golden crows back. The light of their flames dimmed significantly. This opportunity could not be missed. Shao Qian took a step back and his pupils constricted. The Soul Slayer bow appeared in his right hand. Then, he knocked the Starbreaker arrow and pulled back the bowstring. 1 dragon force circulated in Shao Qian's body. His bones gave off a thunderous rumble. The infusion of 5,000 tons of force caused the Soul Slayer attack to release an overwhelming cold chi, immediately expelling the heat from the flaming golden crows. Qin Shaoqing's expression changed. As he looked at the bow in Shao Qian's hand, he had a bad feeling. Shao Qian sheathed his sword and circulated the law energy in his body, wanting to merge the 9 golden crows. Whoosh! However, he was too late in the end. Shao Qian let go, and the Starbreaker arrow flashed with light. The 9 golden crows shot out and destroyed the killing move that Qin Shaoqing had spent a lot of effort on. Shao Qian's lightning dragons were destroyed. However, this change also destroyed all 9 of Qin Shaoqing's golden crows. Qin Shaoqing did not gain an advantage, either. The 2 in the sky fell into an anxious state once more. After exchanging a few moves, they knew how difficult it was to deal with the other party, so they became more cautious. Bai Lang stood beside Lin Yan and the others. He sighed and said, "Brother Shao lacks a good saber. Otherwise, he would not be in such a passive position. This Qin Shaoqing is really incredible. He is the first disciple of the Sword Sovereign. Indeed, he cannot be underestimated." Feng Xingxing shook his head. Shao Qian, who was in the air, was clearly on the defensive against Qin Shaoqing's blazing barrage of attack. He was at a disadvantage. The Inferno Saber Sovereign's disciple, Lin Yan, smiled and said, "As the saying goes, things that are too hard are easy to break." Although Qin Shaoqing's attacks are ferocious, if he still does not have a suppressive advantage after 100 moves, he will lose for sure. Bai Lang nodded and said, "That's right. The crucial thing now is whether Shao Qian can last 100 moves or not. Without a weapon in his hand, he can only use his physical body to receive Qin Shaoqing's sword moves that contain the destructive attribute. No matter how strong his physical body is, there will come a time when he cannot hold on." Duguju, who rarely spoke, did not think highly of Shao Qian. He said sullenly, "It will be a little difficult. I think that Shao Qian's body can no longer hold on. If he receives another 100 moves, he will definitely collapse. Using your physical body to receive 300 moves from me. Even if you have a body of steel, You should not be able to hold on now, right? Qin Shaoqing showed a calm expression as he smiled coldly at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's expression remained calm, and he did not explain much. His physical body had already reached peak rank 3 sage body. Furthermore, he had consumed many divine materials to nourish his body. His physical body was no weaker than the blue-robed emperor's. Although the other party's attacks were tyrannical, and Xiao Chen's physical body was significantly injured, it would be impossible for Xiao Chen's physical body to collapse without at least 200 moves. Seeing that his words did not work, Qin Shaoqing snorted coldly, and his attacks became even more ferocious. In the blink of an eye, 50 moves had passed. The shock waves from 50 kilometers of the mountain range below broke off half of it. It was a frightening sight. Qin Shaoqing saw that Xiao Chen was still very lively, not showing any panic on his delicate face. Qin Shaoqing could not help feeling anxious. He was very clear on his own situation. His sword moves were tyrannical and unparalleled. Every move was a killing move. Every move could bring out the ferocious might of a volcano eruption. However, it exhausted a lot of energy as well. If he still could not take down Xiao Chen, he would really use up all the law energy in his body. At that time, no matter how capable he was, he would not be able to bring it out. He would only be able to sit and wait for death. I cannot afford to lose. Otherwise, I will lose too much face. I can only decide victory in one move. However, just at this moment, something strange happened. Xiao Chen, who had been on the defensive all this while, suddenly moved. Taking advantage of Qin Shaoqing's momentary panic, he charged over first. 18 blue dragons circled around Qin Shaoqing. A horrifying dragon might spread out, and many azure saber lights hacked down. This was Xiao Chen's strongest move, Flawless Blue Dragon, Subduing Dragon Profound Slash. The might that this move burst out with was actually no weaker than Xiao Chen's strong sword intent erupting like a volcano. Saber lights chopped down, a total of 18 saber light. They chopped down continuously, not giving Qin Shaoqing any time to think or a chance to execute a killing move. When the final saber light landed, Qin Shaoqing's sword move was completely disrupted. He vomited a mouthful of blood and went flying back. Myriad Heaven Divine Fist, deities descending, tenfold combat prowess. After much difficulty, Xiao Chen managed to catch the other party's weakness and catch him off guard, injuring him. How could he miss out on this opportunity to deal a fatal blow? Clang! Clang! Just at this moment, 2 sword lights lit up in the sky. Sword intent connected to the soul as they charged at Xiao Chen without any warning. The timing of these 2 moves was very coincidental. They happened to be the instant Xiao Chen's body was enveloped by the divine light. Furthermore, they were fatal strikes from the 2 without holding anything back. Xiao Chen had already exhausted a lot of his energy. His physical body was severely injured. There was no way for him to dodge. The winner takes all. Xiao Chen, so what if you can endure, see through others, and have sharp eyes? I never said that I would fight you one-on-one. Qin Shaoqing smiled coldly. Then, he quickly suppressed the injuries in his body. A vicious look flashed on his face. Then, he charged at Xiao Chen. The 3 formed an encirclement. The situation instantly reversed. Xiao Chen, who had just gained the upper hand, was now in grave danger. The expressions of Bai Lang and the others changed drastically. Clearly, they had not expected the 2 to be so despicable. It was already too late to save Xiao Chen now. Elder brother Xiao Chen, just make your move. Bai, help me block these bad people. A fragrant wind blew in the chilly battlefield. A pretty figure rushed over at lightning speed. In the time it took for a spark to fly, she drew the sword at her waist. Immediately, snow-white feathers fluttered in the air. A sword light shook everyone's hearts, humming endlessly. With a casual move, it blocked Gu Jianheng's and Lu Kuan's killing moves. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. When he saw Qin Shaoqing's expression change, he said coldly, To think that the Sword Sovereign's faction could produce trash like you. Today, you not only embarrassed yourself but also the entire Profound Domain's swordsman. Bang! The fearless Shao Chen punched out with 10 dragon force. Boom! He sent Qin Shaoqing, who was charging over, flying, crashing into a mountain peak. The mountain peak crumbled, burying Qin Shaoqing with a loud rumble. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Gu Jianheng, Lu Kuan, you two bastards! Bring Qin Shaoqing and scram out of Heavenly Cauldron City. Bai Lang led Feng Xingxing and dozens of others over. Without saying anything, they surrounded Gu Jianheng and Lu Kuan, who Bai Lang had stopped, and beat them up. Since the other party broke the rules first, Bai Lang did not have to hold back. No matter how powerful the two were, they would only be asking for a beating. Gu Jianheng and Lu Kuan were beaten black and blue. The other party was the Sword Sovereign's faction. Bai Lang and the others didn't dare to kill them, but they couldn't help but suffer some physical pain. They had lost a lot of face this time. The two's original plan was to take down Shao Chen when he least expected it. Then, they would use their first senior brother's strength to sweep through the others. At that time, the winner would be the king, and the loser would be the thief. The world would only remember that Qin Shaoqing swept through the Saber Dao Tea Party. No one would care about the two's sneak attack. Unexpectedly, Xiao Bai suddenly appeared. The Spirit Fox King's adopted daughter, who was originally with them, blocked them at the crucial moment. Yuan Shichen, you can forget about entering the Heavenly Sword Pavilion again.